Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Night's Light Astrology. Excuse me. Today we're talking about the solar eclipse in Leo. And while it's almost 2 weeks away, I kind of figured I would need maybe 2 streams to even talk about how wild this eclipse is. So we're just going to go ahead and get started early on it and go through some really interesting things that I saw with the eclipse itself. When it comes to this eclipse, there's this thing with eclipses, and we'll get into it, but it has to deal with this drift that you get on eclipses from the equator and where they're going to be in totality. And we've just been in this drift for a long time, since I believe it's 1913, 1918, something like that. It'll all be in the presentation. But now we're at this turning point. So this is really the big thing that I'm going to put forth that I don't think a lot of other astrologers will really put forth. That we're at this turning point of change, and it's really getting initiated by where the nodes are right now, which is North Node in Aquarius and South Node in Leo. So for this eclipse specifically, South Node, it kind of takes away things. So this first eclipse, for most people, I would say, is going to be a little bit more rough than the next eclipse that we have, which is on the 28th. And that eclipse is going to be of course, well, it's the North Node's in Aquarius, but it's actually going to be in Pisces. So with that one, I think it's really speaking to what do we want to keep now that the North Node is out of Pisces, okay, and we've really taken on for the last year and a half this Piscean energy. What do we want to take with us from that? And like, what have we learned from all of that? I think that's going to be a much more positive placement, even though a lot of the Pisces stuff has been more on the negative side that we've been going through, because so many planets were in Pisces, are doing a lot of work in Pisces. Of course, when the year was turning over, we just had this lineup of planets that really started in Capricorn, and then they all moved into Aquarius, all moved into Pisces, and then Aries. That's when they started to separate and everything. And now we've kind of got a little bit more of a diverse sky right now. But no, when we had that lineup in Pisces, that already brought people through a lot with the Pisces energy. But then even in the years prior to that, we had Neptune in Pisces, of course, for I think it was about 14 years, 14, 15 years it was in there. And then Saturn was in Pisces as well. And so those have both moved over, now both in Aries, as we know. A very different energy to be in than Pisces. So I think this eclipse really speaks to, not this eclipse, but the eclipse that's going to come after this one, because we're going into eclipse season here. I think it's going to really speak to what we learned during these last 14 years, essentially. 14 years is a big number that comes in, and then also 2.5, 3 years with that Saturn there, but then also this year itself, and kind of consolidating a lot of that energy, integrating that energy within ourselves too, and then figuring out, yes, what we want to take with us. And it's less about how, because obviously if the South Node was the one that was in Pisces, then it would be kind of more of this releasing about it. But it's more that we're moving on from the Pisces energy, and we have to figure out what to take with us and what's no longer going to serve us. And I think that was the really important part of that. So we've also got some other interesting planets in play. We'll go over the chart, but it's going to be we're looking at Mars. That's going to be in Cancer. And of course, America's a Cancerian nation. So that's going to be really interesting to look at and see how that plays out. We're still holding that charge. Really, how would I say this? An ambient charge we're still holding, and I could say it's tense, maybe with bated breath, you could say. There is this feeling in the air that we can all feel, though, and that something is getting ready to discharge. It's like before lightning strikes. So we've got that. Of course, we just have the full moon in Aquarius too, very electric. We've got Uranus, which rules, that electricity right there. That's in Gemini. And this is really, this speaks to, and it's going to be there for the next 7 years, but the Mars-Uranus conjunction we had on the 4th of July, that's what really kind of makes it seem, especially after this Mercury retrograde in Cancer, that there's going to be this discharge of news, of crazy information. It could be something violent. We're going to even look at where this eclipse falls in the astrocartography, and then also with the actual path of the eclipse. Because with the astrocartography, what we're seeing is that it's the Mars line is going right through where we're having all of the Middle Eastern conflict. And this is where I'm talking about Mars having this incredible charge right now. Mars, of course, being the planet of war, in a personal chart, it can be the ambition or the drive, but it's conflict, it's war, it can be violence on a more mundane chart like that. So that's in play right now around this eclipse. Definitely something to look out for. And I bring this up because it seems right now that Mars is the one that's really holding this charge from going, from crossing over, from conjuncting with Uranus. So we're going to see if that actually discharges into something, because we had a lot of planets doing their work in Cancer. We had that new moon in Cancer, and that was conjunct with Mercury. On a personal level, more about this integration with the emotional body and the mental body, and bringing those together. And what I really noticed with that, I thought it was going to be an eclipse that messed me up. I have an Aquarian moon conjunct my Saturn. It's very emotionally cold, distant, emotionally detached. And that is something, of course, I do struggle with in my life. Not so much these days, but, now that I know my astrology. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is I thought that was going to mess me up, and it would bring up things that I wasn't aware I was suppressing emotionally. But I actually moved through this retrograde really well. It mostly had to do with stuff within my own home and home repairs I'm doing and all that. But no, it seems more like there's this shift away from totally feeling the emotions all the time. And I even hate to say it like that, because the people that operate in that way, I mean, you could say I'm kind of jealous of that. I do love that. And so many of my friends are like that. But what I noticed with that whole new moon and then the Mercury retrograde and all of that, what I noticed with that is it messed with people more who are much more emotional than it messed with someone like myself, who's got more of an emotional detachment, or you could say even like air moon people, I think air moons move through it the best. But all of this is to say that we had all of this action going on in Cancer. So within your life itself, there is going to be this drawback of where you can take action as Mars moves into this, as well as with the eclipse coming in, with the stuff, and this is going to be in Leo, of course, with that eclipse coming in and the stuff we've had going on in Leo already, especially this groundwork that Jupiter has really laid out for us after we had this Cazimi, and it is this chalice that's ready to be filled. Right now it's went through this kind of scorpionic rebirth, if you want to call it that, going through the flames and dying only to be reborn and come back stronger. And this is that Jupiterian aspect of your life. And with Jupiter, this is going to rule. Of course, there's luck. Of course, there's abundance. But, it's got expansion. It's got long distance travel, education, learning. This can be teaching things to other people as well. And on top of that, this is where, first of all, an eclipse is kind of very Uranian energy, if you think about what an eclipse does. And we'll talk about what the eclipses do too. But it is this very disruptive energy, okay? It's kind of like where you get the option, or something, you get it laid out to you with a new moon or a full moon, whether you're going to release something or whether you're going to plant a seed for something. It's more that this type of thing arrives. And it's kind of, I'm not going to say outside of your control, but there's a situation that arrives and it needs to be confronted. And so this is why people talk about eclipses heralding change. That's the really big one there. But what I'm saying is all of these Jupiterian things, and I have those readings here on the channel, and they're all organized. You could skip straight to your sign for that too if you go back and check other videos. But when we're specifically looking at that Jupiter and Leo video and the themes that we talked about for Jupiter and Leo, then this is really what we're seeing the eclipse start to bring in, that outside situation, or it could be the inner situation that just can no longer be ignored. That it's going to bring that in and then allow you to start doing work in this area. And it's going to be work that you're doing for the next year and a half with the eclipses going on, both in Leo and in Aquarius, bringing in that balancing act because it's on the axes of the two opposite signs there. There's going to be this balancing act going on where you're going to feel more comfortable in a lot of this Leo energy and knowing what to do. But you have to remember it is the South Node. So you can look back at other Leo themed things, and it's because Jupiter's going to be there, and it's because it's going to expand that area of your life, whatever house that's in. And we'll look at that, of course, in the readings. That's where you're going to see, okay, this is like something in the past I did that maybe I can leave that behind in terms of the Leo energy, but this is something I'm very comfortable in. This thing over here I'm comfortable in, and that's something that I can lean in on and integrate that into myself. So we're really in this stage here of a lot of integration that is coming in, and it's dealing with a lot of these harder placements that we've had over the summer going on. And at the same time, this background energy that is sitting there waiting for a lightning strike to come in. And I guess the one thing I forgot to mention, I was kind of leading into all this, is that you have to remember how electric this is, how Uranian this is, as I brought up that full moon, or the rather eclipse, because Jupiter itself is an electric planet. If you think about it, if we're looking at these outer planets, I guess Jupiter is like still a personal planet, but if you're looking at these bigger gas giants here, Jupiter and Uranus are the ones where you're going to see that lightning on it. You get it on Neptune too. You can bring that in, but it's nowhere near what you get with Jupiter and with Uranus. So that's another interesting thing. So very electric feeling here, and with all the fire that's going on and the air that's going on, it makes for an interesting mix right now. So if you're a water sign or an earth sign, it can feel a little bit different, but if you surrender to it, you can definitely get into it. And I think that's really what this last Pisces lunar eclipse that we're going to have here on the 28th, not the eclipse we're talking about today, but the eclipse on the 28th. I think that's what it's really going to be about, especially for water and earth signs, because with that eclipse there, it's really about, okay, this is where I can surrender to these things, and that's going to be, of course, still up there by the north node where that's going on. Of course, it's in the next sign over, but still it's going to be up there, and it's really about for specifically the water and the earth signs, knowing how to just surrender to all of this interesting energy that's completely the opposite of what we're really used to dealing with. So we'll dig into all of that right now, and some finer things with the eclipse, things on the world stage. But just thank you for tuning in to Night's Light Astrology, and let's get started. All right, I'm just catching up to chat here. Good to see you, Sedona Angel, and great to see you too, Sharon. I hope you guys are having a good weekend so far. I was going to go yesterday. We'll see, though. Maybe I'll make this my new day or something, but I was going to go yesterday. My AC was just totally messing up. And then, yesterday was a day. I don't know, how did you guys feel with the energy yesterday? Because, man, there was something in that. Like, I slept a lot, too. Once I decided not to stream, I just slept so much. I think I got 14 hours total of sleep yesterday. It was pretty insane. And I'm like, definitely, I always have to like check against myself. Am I depressed if I'm sleep like I slept a lot? Am I depressed? And I'm not. I'm feeling very excited for the future, very happy about where I'm at in life, both the near future and the far out future. So I'm just sitting there like, why am I sleeping so much? Could be solar flares. I don't know. Yeah, you're feeling that too, Sedona Angel. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so I called this one The Lion Goes Dark for this solar eclipse that we're having, because it's really what it's or another one, it was kind of cheesy, so I decided not to do it, but I'll still mention it. It was like kind of, I was gonna name it also like The Lion Sleeps Tonight, so that was because that's really the vibe that I get from this. And it's less about it's funny because we're talking about sleep right now, but less about that it's going to be a passive eclipse, but it's almost like something comes into your life to where this slumbering lion within you, like all of a sudden is forced to wake up. That's really what I was thinking with that. It's just like the lion within you, it's been in hibernation, it's been slumbering, and then all of a sudden it's forced to wake up by whatever this internal event is, external event is, however this eclipse hits you. It really, and it makes you tap into this pride that it wasn't that you never had it, it's that you always had it and you forgot how to use it. And I think that's a big thing we're going to see just through the month of August itself, as we get these two eclipses, as these things start to move into Leo here. And then on top of it, getting that Cancer Mars. I think with that Cancer Mars, it's I think it'll be a lot easier than the Taurus Mars that we had. That was a slog. It was slogging along. But I think this one is less about being slow to move and more about comfort in the way that you're moving. And that's why I bring up accessing that inner lion. And then there's that comfort within it. It was there all along. And then, you're gonna feel that ease, that comfort with it, that even familiarity, that nostalgia from it. And then this is where we had all this childhood kind of integration and memories that came up around the moon and Mercury during that new moon in Cancer that came up right there. It was kind of about being nostalgic about the past, remembering these things. Well, this is the time where we can integrate those things that came up, and this will be once Mercury comes out of shadow. So it's really perfect there. So I think that's what the Mars being there does. Of course, there's the things on the world stage that's going to deal with too, because as I said, in America here, we are a Cancerian nation. So I think there's something that's going to come up. But as we start to get everything, moving into Leo afterwards, like Mars specifically, then that's where the real magic begins, and you can start filling up that Jupiter chalice, that cup that's just waiting to be filled now that Jupiter has died and been reborn again, getting ready for this next cycle here of Jupiter for the next year in Leo. And then even with this, we've got Venus that's going to be in Libra too, and so that really speaks to something. But once we get to the chart here, that's when I'll kind of go deeper into that kind of stuff. I'm going too deep on just like the on just the starting one here, but yeah, it's going to be at 10:36 Pacific time, 10:36 a.m. that is Pacific time on the 12th of August here. So obviously we're doing this well in advance, almost 2 weeks in advance, but I'll be touching back on this next week because there's just so much to go over with this, and you'll kind of see as we get into it. I'll try to burn through it pretty quick and get to the stuff. I know my last stream went kind of long, but I want this one I'm trying to stick to 2 hours here. But all right, and then hold on, there we go. Oh my gosh, I know, right? It's so funny that I love how Sedona Angel, with what you're saying in chat, looking forward to Jupiter moving out of your 12th house. I love how you'll have your planets move out of a certain house, and then that's like right as, for me, it moves into that house because of how our charts are laid out. So I'm just over here like at least you got to tell me what it was like having a 12th house Jupiter there. Of course, it'll be a little bit of a different vibe since it's Leo 12th house, but I'm just happy it's still in my 11th right now for a bit. So that's I get some little bit of a grace with it, so I don't go right into it. But yeah, I've got definitely all this stuff moving into the 12th. So it's, for me, it's like kind of on more of a minor scale. Some of like these planets are, and I think the eclipse is going to play a big role in this. Some of these planets are dying for me, and then like being reborn into Virgo and all that in a kind of different way, because 12th house being like the endings type of stuff based on each chart, and then going into that first house. So we've got before the eclipse, the sky stops moving. So, and this is almost like you gotta like really look here too with the true node, okay, or the north node, but with the north node, the thing with the north node, if you're doing true node versus mean node, I typically use true node, but then like I'll kind of look at mean node as well, because there's this this star, I'm forgetting the name of it. Crap. This is something I just found out about. It was a new star that's like in Sagittarius. It's around Sedona Angel, you might know. I think it's around like 13 degrees or something like that. And I'm not even remembering what the star is about. It was this guy that you had linked me. The handsome dude. I'm trying to remember his name, but it was talking about, it was like an attractor kind of star. I don't think it's Antares. And actually, it might not even be a star. It was a degree, I think it was. It was a degree he was talking about. And but it essentially talked about that you like attract a lot of people to yourself. And the only reason I bring this up is I think it's literally the attractor degree, but it's like 13 degrees Sag. You can always look it up too, but I have my node, my true node is 11 degrees, I believe it is, like 11 or 12 degrees. They only use a 1 degree orb to pick up on that placement. But I'm like, well, let me look at my mean node. And then I've kind of figured out the difference between the true node and the mean node. But what I found out was my mean node is actually within orb of that. It gets within orb of that 13 degrees, but I'm out of orb with the true node. But the difference is, now that I know this, all this to bring it back around for you guys, is that the true node it'll always retrograde pretty much. Like, it doesn't move forward. It'll retrograde, then it will station, and then it will retrograde and station, and retrograde and station, you know. But the mean node will have a consistent retrograde, just always going through. And so you get these like little differences. Okay, Pacha was talking about the mean node. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was happy that I used the mean node for that, because it told me a different story, and then I was realizing, okay, I'm gonna actually switch between the mean node and the true node. So that's cool. That because Pacha is a goat. He's awesome. True node stations direct on July 31st at 4:51 a.m. And so we already passed that, of course. As I'm recording this, we're on August 1st. Last degree of Aquarius, the anaretic degree. So powerful stuff in Aquarius, powerful stuff in Leo right now in terms of the direction it's pushing us in, because the anaretic degree is that most powerful degree. But here we go. Then it stops. It sits between. So now we just had it stop for a little bit before it will start retrograding again. It sits between 29 degrees 47 minutes and 29 degrees 52 minutes for the rest of the month. It does not move again before the eclipse. So now it's literally, as this is saying, the sky stops moving. And this gets into kind of that background charge of energy that I've been talking about too. It's kind of like the breath being held for this placement that's coming in for the eclipse. And what this means, something's being held in place before the eclipse arrives. As I kind of just said, the last degree of a sign is where a thing has run out of room and the node is refusing to leave it. And so this really just ties back to everything I was saying here with just that Leo energy and awakening the lion, and then knowing what parts of that you want to keep and integrate over this next 1.5 year period, you know, and then what parts of that you kind of want to leave behind, and really going over the way that this lion has come up within you before, and just coming to terms with that too. You know, because of all this reflection, nostalgia from the Cancer stuff we've had going on. Now, Cancer is always going to be before Leo, so I don't want it to sound like I'm reaching for that. It's more that the heavy placements we just had going on in Cancer, the retrograde with that new moon, the conjunction it had, it really, really, I think we all felt it, and we can talk about how intense or hard that Mercury retrograde might have been, because that definitely is the consensus for most people. You know, I kind of told you my situation with it, but the real thing with that I think is important to remember there is just like how it speaks to what was going on internally. And then I think farther down the line, in a year, in 2 years or something, that's where you're going to see like, dang, that retrograde actually really worked some stuff in me. And I'm not, you know, it's so intense, but you're not realizing just how intense it was until we go further down the line. And then let's see here. And then, of course, this is kind of just stuff that we've already seen go on here, what's already fired. So we had Saturn station retrograde. That was the 26th of July. Of course, true node just stationed. Okay, the north node, or both nodes, I guess, true node. So, you know, stationed. And then on the 11th here, the day before the eclipse, that's where we're going to have Mars enter Cancer, and it's at fall too. So there is this interesting thing here. It's going to be at fall. So there's kind of this tension, and this is what I talked about a little bit, is I think there's going to be a comfort to it, but it's about not falling back into certain like levels of comfort. That's the thing. As this lion awakens, it's more about tapping into that sun within yourself, that solar energy that you have, that wants to shine, that wants to, you know, take center stage, show people what you're good at, be authentic, be creative, you know, be able to do all these things. And that's really what can bring about the comfort in a positive way. But because that is in fall, it's going to be easy for a lot of people to lean into this kind of more negative way for it to play out. And that would just be, you know, avoiding telling someone the truth, avoiding doing that thing that you've wanted to be doing, being yourself, being authentic, all of these different things. And then you even bring that Jupiterian energy into it, where it's like wanting to go on an adventure. You know, what's that adventure you always wanted to go on? Are you able to go on it? Are you going to tell yourself these excuses, these lies to not do it? Are you not going to take that risk, that thing that's been coming up? And it's going to be different for everyone, but just make sure you're realizing like, hey, this is the time for me to be brave. And you know, that is the lion, that's that Leo energy. It's bravery. So it's time to be brave and step into that purpose, you know. And of course, the day after that, Mars enters Cancer, you've got that total solar eclipse that is going on here. And of course, at 20 degrees. And yeah, so with the solar eclipse, as we know, as most of us know, that's going to be like the sun and the moon. So it's a new moon, but then it's just where the moon is covering up the sun for that new moon. It comes across all that. And then south node, since the south node is there, because you get these rare times where an eclipse will happen, but the nodes won't be there. And this is like what I'm talking about for the lunar eclipse we have after this, where the eclipse is going to happen. It's going to be in Pisces, but the nodes aren't there. So, you know, but with having the south node there, this is a subtraction. This is like it's taking something away, okay? But you just have to remember there's that comfort part of it too. So it shouldn't be taking everything away. And there's something that's going to arrive where you still need to lean into that energy as well, with Jupiter also there too. So that's kind of where it gets really interesting, having Jupiter there at the same time. So this is really and then even just looking at the eclipse itself, this whole turning point thing that we'll look at. So really, really interesting. Yeah, Jupiter is still in there. And then the greatest part of the eclipse, that's going to be in Iceland too. So Greenland, Iceland, northern Spain, that's where it runs into. So it's funny because I was just doing the stream with my amazing colleague, Esperanza Bense. And then Robert Phoenix joined us, and we were doing the full moon in Aquarius stream on the day of the full moon. And we got to talking about the upcoming eclipse. And that was something that I brought up, was I had been doing my research for this stream, and there was something going on in Spain. And then literally the next day we saw all of that stuff with Spain that was going on. I just thought that was so insane, because it was on Thursday when I saw the first news report for that, all that Spain stuff going on, where the people were just flooding in, going over, or not even over, but like going around the gate, flooding through the gate, all that stuff. And now in the days after here, we're seeing all the crime stuff, the video of the crime that's happening, and just crazy stuff. They're looting everyone there. It's a very small town to be dealing with. And the thing you might not hear about this, that you can look into this too for yourself, but there's a part of Israel stuff that's going on with that. And not to sound like I just think like Israel's responsible for everything, but if you look at Morocco there, and with what's going on with Morocco just geopolitically and everything, they were actually one of the people they signed on and acknowledged Israel under the Abraham Accords. Okay, so this would have been what, like I think it was about 6 years ago or something. Under the Abraham Accords, they were acknowledging the state of Israel as an actual state, and then of course they're like a Muslim state for the most part, you know. But with all of that, they're like on Israel's good side, quote unquote. But Spain has been on Israel's bad side. They're not letting anyone port there, any ships port there that are bringing munitions, that are bringing supplies for the war to Israel. So they essentially got on Israel's shit list. And then through a law that hasn't been passed yet, but setting the groundwork for this, they're taking over that land. And this is a law that's going on within our own government here. So it just passed through the House. It still needs to go through the Senate, but this is actually giving that land over back to Morocco, that the Moroccans like went into, that is like Spanish land now, but it's already going to be traded over. And so this is kind of early. There's something deeper going on. I think we'll see that closer to the eclipse here, but that's just an interesting thing to add here, because a lot of like the guy Robert Phoenix here, who was on the full moon stream, excuse me, he was talking about, he thinks that something is going to be exposed with Israel, so that could be related to what we see peak in Spain during this time. And I was kind of on the fence. I definitely can see that. And he's a great astrologer. He's been doing it far longer than I have, so he's definitely seen it. And I always listen to his intuitive hits, but I was kind of leaning more towards, not so much an exposure of what's going on, but that they jump the gun too fast on something. Or, it could be both. But I feel like it's going to end up being related to Spain in some way, or it could be like Greenland, Iceland. Obviously, Trump is trying to take Greenland. So we've got that stuff going on. This kind of gets into the whole tech magnate that is dealing with the whole Western Hemisphere and us taking the Americas. And this is in the NDS documentation for 2026 and the goals they have. We went over this stuff, but we'll keep it moving here. Just kind of giving you a vibe for the background things going on in this eclipse right now, or leading up to this eclipse rather. All right, and then of course I cast this chart for Las Vegas. We talked about a lot of this stuff here earlier when I first went into the stream, so I won't rehash too much of it. That's funny. The Uranus symbol is like way too big, but we'll run with it. But yeah, we've got this stuff that I was already talking about. I should have double checked this for all the aspects it's making. Honestly, I really should have checked for that because it doesn't even have degrees here. So I'm like, oh dang, I'm a little short on the aspects. But we're mainly just looking at the eclipse itself anyway. And I'll take a deeper look at the chart as we get closer. So this will be next week around this time when I do my live. We'll take a much closer look at the chart and we'll go into it aspect by aspect. Right now we're kind of going through some of these bigger things going on in terms of the way the eclipse is moving and why this eclipse is different than other ones, why it's a turning point. But the thing I didn't bring up that I was talking about earlier here is that Venus is going to be going into Libra here. So this is a time where we could see talks of a ceasefire on the world stage. It's been everything's been heating up again and been getting kind of crazy, but this could be where there's talk. And I'm not even saying there's going to be a ceasefire. It's very hard to imagine that from where we're at now because we've got Mars in Cancer at the same time here. And of course, guys, this is the 12th of August when this is going on. But yeah. Venus in Libra here, that's what that really speaks to is something judicious, something wanting to work things out. And you have to also realize at this point where we're going to be really low on oil, we're already really low on oil. We've already been tapping into the reserves and then kind of pulling a little bit of oil out of our butts, and they're kind of not necessarily telling us that. If you're looking at the stock market, what people call the paper price of oil, that is not matching what the barrel price is. So the speculative look at the oil itself is not matching what we're actually paying. So it's getting released from somewhere, and they can only do that for so long until we're out. And yeah, I mean, every single day I'm seeing reports of different tankers that are getting blown out of the water, essentially. It's just minimal damage and they have to turn around, but that are trying to go through the Omani side of the Strait of Hormuz. By the way, I have to just say, a pet peeve that I have is what people are calling it the Straits of Hormuz, like plural Straits of Hormuz. No, it's the Strait of Hormuz, not the Straits of Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz. But yeah, on the Omani side, they keep trying to send stuff through. It keeps getting hit by Iranian missiles, Iranian attacks, and then they have to turn back around. So you kind of see this pressure building up. That's like a really big thing right now. But something about Mars going into Cancer, there is this effect it's going to have on us, and it's going to be there for a while too. So it's kind of feeling the squeeze because by the time Mars moves into Leo, that's when we're going to be dealing with the Mercury. It's going to be around that time. We'll be dealing with the Mercury, maybe a week or two difference, but it'll be Mercury and Venus retrograde, which is going to start in Scorpio. And this has been my prediction since last year, late last year at this time, that is really speaking to, because it's dealing with debt, with finance, with other people's resources, with all of that. I think that's where we're going to see something financial shift in the US. And it's going to be because Venus is going to deal with money. It's going to be around money, around commerce and trade. That's going to be Mercury. Those are going to both go into that retrograde period. And that's going to go, of course, back into Libra. So it is going to address something around this time. So even if we see something about peace talks that's going on, that's what's like the really interesting thing to think about is we're going to come back to this, or this could be a new agreement that's made and then it ends up falling through by that time. It's tough to say, but I'm just giving you a feel for those energies. As far as in our personal life, we've had Venus right here in Virgo, and she does not like being in Virgo. And this is where I'm always telling my friends and everything is I've been in this pickier, critical kind of nature myself. For me, it's more been a people-based thing, less of an aesthetic-based thing, although that's been there too, where things are just disgusting me very easily. Ever since Venus went into Virgo, it's like a perfectionist type of thing, and like I'll just see the way someone behaves, or I'll see something particular I just don't like, and it just disgusts me so much more than usual. So once it moves into Libra, it's a lot lighter. It will give you a lot more tolerance for things. It'll be easier to have conversations with people. People typically think of Mercury for conversations, and I would agree, but you also have to think of Venus being the attractor, and that's who you're attracting to yourself. And so with that, this is where that can lean into conversations being easier, especially because Mercury is going to finally be in Leo by that time. I believe it's the 8th that Mercury goes into Leo, 8th or the 7th. And so that's going to be, okay, I can be in my authenticity. Remember, Leo rules authenticity. So I could be in my authenticity. And then on top of that, I can actually have these conversations in a judicious manner. In a very lighthearted, easy way. It's that, and when you're looking at these two placements, I mean, I love anything that's going to aspect with Libra over into Leo there, because it's one of the only air fire combos you get that's actually lighthearted and softer with the way that those play out. A lot of other ones you get kind of intense, like if you're looking at a Gemini Leo, or if you're looking at, even this is more of an opposition, but like a Gemini Sag, or if you're looking at, say, like Aries Aquarius, that's where it's a very, very different vibes with all of those, but very light, fun vibe with that. And so with the stellium we're going to be working with right there anyway, I think that'll play out really, really well for you. And then whichever house this is happening in your chart, this is just the house set up for Las Vegas and everything, but we'll get into the charts themselves. Whatever house that's happening in for you, that's really where you're going to see. Of course, you can confront things. Of course, there's going to be something about that, but you do have that supporting aspect right here of Venus that's going to help a lot with that. So just remember that too. That'll really help you kind of just deal with it with grace. That's another thing I say with Libra is it's very graceful. And so you'll be able to handle a lot of this stuff with authenticity, but also with grace. And of course, we talked a lot already about that Mars in Cancer there. Now we got the retrograde Neptune, the retrograde Saturn going on, okay? We're still going to have Uranus moving forward, Uranus going direct there, okay? But we've also got the retrograde Pluto too. So as we're getting later into the year here, especially once we hit like September, October, then we start to have these other retrogrades that come in. You're going to have the Mars retrograde. Well, Mars is actually like at the end of the year, but you're going to have the Venus and the Mercury retrograde again, once we get to October here. You're going to have those come in. You're going to, towards the end of the year, then we'll get Jupiter retrograde. And then we're also going to get Uranus retrograde. So right now, we've still got some momentum and going and stuff to get a lot of these things done for the summer. And you should have been getting these things done, obviously. It just kind of feels like maybe you didn't because of the Mercury retrograde we had, but you actually did get a lot done with that. And it's going to help support the rest of the stuff you have to get done this year before we hit all these retrogrades, go into this more reflection period or introspection period, and evaluate how we're going to go about doing next year once we get all these planets going direct again. So I'd say that's mostly it with the chart itself. I want to make sure we save time to go into each sign. And I'm going to do a much bigger breakdown of this chart next week. I might even just do it on like Wednesday, or I'll do my typical Friday, Saturday day. But I want to spend one day specifically for the chart itself. I just would rather do it closer to the eclipse and kind of see what happens here. I wanted to kind of lay this stuff out so people know what to expect though for each zodiac sign. But let's go ahead and look. And then I'll read this last part here. The eclipse lands in the 11th whole sign house: friends, networks, the group, long range, hope. And so this is really this is where I would think you could get a turning point around like okay, it's hopeless, because you have to think about this being for like more so America. It's, you know, not for America, because America's a Sagittarius rising. Okay, so I mean, it's going to be in like the ninth house. It is going to be about abroad. Okay, it'll be about like what's going on abroad. For most of the planets, they're going to fall in the ninth house there, and then you can even get a couple planets falling in the eighth house, and overseas too, with what's going on in Europe too, Spain in particular, but then other the charts of other nations as well, like I think even Israel too. They've got a lot of this stuff hitting their eighth house. Okay, and so some of this will even be hitting America's eighth house as well. So that's just like an interesting thing to happen or to see right there. But it might not be Israel though, but I know for sure it is with Spain that you got this eighth house thing. And what is that going to trigger like an economic thing too? So this is where you can see that in America. But if you're just looking at where it's at in the sky, and this is specifically for Las Vegas here, you know, it is dealing with friends, networks, group, long range, hope. So I can look over. I don't think it changes like a whole lot, but it will change a little bit between all of them. So you kind of would need to cross-reference all of the different placements, or look specifically at Washington D.C., which I should have pulled it for that. So that's something I'll add to the list for doing next week. But yeah, that's just an interesting thing to throw in there. And then especially if you're living over here in the Pacific time zone, you can actually take that to the bank with that 11th house stuff, is that there is going to be this aspect about hope for the future, long range, going out there like that, but then also your networks. That's really being activated, okay? But take that a little bit more loosely. This is just kind of the general chart. Saturn sits 2.2 degrees off the Descendant. Mars is in the 10th, newly in its fall. And so we kind of talked about that too. But what is interesting that I didn't bring up is, yes, it's right there, just off of the Descendant, you know, 2 degrees below the Descendant. So there is this kind of setting that you can look at. Ooh, excuse me. There's this setting of Saturn, you know, like how the sun sets, Saturn setting. There's this aspect of Saturn going in here. It's already been in retrograde, so this has been coming up. But I think the eclipse will really highlight a lot of these corrections you can make when it comes to the Saturnian things in your life. This is going to be dealing with public image, with your career, your reputation, okay? The new structures you may be building in this in your life right now, because of course Saturn's in Aries. So there should have been this theme since about February of this year of the new structures, the new things you're building, that ultimately you want them to be long-term things. But there are just a couple corrections that come in, already been coming in, but there's going to be a new insight that comes out around that. And then of course 11th house is also insight too, so just an interesting thing to bring up there. But as I said, this is localized though, so let's see. And subtraction. Okay, so I mean, this is what we already kind of talked about. A north node eclipse brings things in. A south node eclipse takes them out. This one is on the south node, as we talked about. It empties a house rather than filling it, whichever house holds Leo in your chart. So Jupiter filled it, the moon lit it, this one empties it. And I would argue even Jupiter is figuring out how it can fill it up, and it's actually gonna get emptied out before, and then Jupiter will really start to fill that in. Then you get the retrograde of Jupiter, of course, and that's going to go into next year. So you'll have that Jupiter retrograde, but then it's going to move forward again, and then it will continue to fill. So it's an ongoing process of a year. Leo's going to be going through a lot. It's going to be going through way more than Cancer went through with Jupiter in it, that's for sure. You know, that it's just pretty insane here. But let's see here. Okay, so this was interesting. This is the thing I'm kind of bringing up. We'll burn through it quick because it's a lot of numbers and a lot of math, but this is just to show you this drift that's been going on here. Okay, with these eclipses, there's been a drift. If you look at the degrees, okay, of how it's drifting north more and more, where you get the totality of the eclipse. And so we have 2 more eclipses left, okay, where it's going to be this one and then the next one. 2 more eclipses left, and I'm talking about the next solar eclipse, that is, where it's drifting here to as far really north as the totality of the eclipse can drift. So I'm going to read over here on this side. The series has climbed from 50 degrees north to 65 degrees north and stalled. It has aged into a short totality polar series. 2044 is total, 2062 is only partial. And so this is where this is why I bring up this turning point part of the eclipse. This is the part astrologers won't talk about if they even bring up a turning point. I doubt it will be related to this, but it's more about you see that there's been this build up to it, and now it's really kind of at the end of it, and it's going to start to reverse. So this is where we get a reversal. And you got to remember, South Node Leo's there. This is about moving away from putting all our faith into leaders, all of our trust. Remember, Jupiter's in Leo too, faith and belief and all that stuff. It's about moving away from putting our faith and belief into our leaders and putting it more into ourself. And this is where you get all the other action that's going on in that Leo energy. Okay, but yeah, 2044 is the total, 2062 is partial. And the thing that we know about 2044 specifically, that's when we're going to be moving out finally of Pluto in Aquarius here, which is really about power to the people. And there's Pluto in Pisces, and this is the true end of an age with Pluto Pisces. You know, the Pluto Pisces, that's a special I have to do here, because I definitely want to do more research on that. But with Pluto Pisces, I mean, the last time we had Pluto Pisces, there was weird stuff going on. Like weird, this is like Tartaria kind of stuff, and just strange things that aren't very well documented, that seem to be very reset oriented. So we're in this build up right here, and in this turning point to being able to position ourselves for that. And then it starts to move back by 2062. Of course, it's moving back in that direction. This is of course way far out, but this is to kind of show you on a broader scale where we're at in society and how things are going. Okay. And then right here, yeah, so 1918 is just like 6 degrees, okay? So if you look here, this would be the separation, okay? And it's kind of like a lot, but this is just to show you here. It's definitely a lot of numbers here, but separation between the sun's midheaven line and the point of the greatest eclipse. Same series, 7 returns, okay? And so so the last one was more of a totality, if I'm correct here. Yeah, it was more like the totality. Oh no, so this is the same thing. Yeah, this is more just the separation though between the sun's midheaven line. This is astrocartography, guys. Sun's midheaven line, and then the greatest point of the eclipse. So it was very close. This is another thing that just adds into it, by the way. But it was super, super close. The sun's midheaven line, which is what's really running the eclipse, is that sun solar eclipse, right? And then the midheaven line, and then like the actual point of the greatest eclipse. So super close in 1918, but then you see it drift more and more. 1936, 1954, 1972, you see just the drift. I won't go through all the numbers there, you can see them right there, but there's that drift that happens. And now we're really pretty much at like the greatest point of that drift, and it's going to start coming back in, and you're going to see that over this, period that we have. And of course this goes out really long, but this is just showing on the broader scale where we're at, as I said before. And then this is just kind of showing, how would I say this? This isn't a visual of it, okay? Of showing where the greatest eclipse lands, the shadow lands, versus the subsolar point, the equator here. So that's just shows you based on the equatorial place how it's drifting and where you get that greatest eclipse. And so it doesn't seem like it's a lot of degrees, but it's like actually quite a bit there. And then this also has the same principle is also happening with the sun's like midheaven line too. So I'll go ahead and read down here. The sun's midheaven line marks the subsolar point. And so that's the subsolar point. These are these lines that we have here. Where the sun stands directly overhead. The eclipse path marks where the moon's shadow physically lands. Near the equator, the shadow falls close to that overhead point, and the two agree. Toward the pole, the shadow strikes at a grazing angle far from it, and the maps come apart. And so this is really what that speaks to. It's kind of the stuff we already brought up with the eclipse, but it like this, the angle it's at, you can say it's a more rough angle. So it's going to do more, and it's kind of doing more on the world stage, so that as we get into this turning point, like essentially the chaos that comes in, remember we got all these outer planets and new signs, we got this charge being held that's waiting to be discharged onto the world somewhere, and it very well could be this eclipse here that does it or begins the process of it. But really what that speaks to is it's going to be a much more difficult placement that's going to, I mean, be a bigger event, I personally think, than we're used to seeing, at least during this eclipse cycle. You know, during the cycle that we have for the next year and a half of these eclipses going back and forth between Aquarius and Leo. So just something to be mindful of too, because now it's almost like the rubber band has been fully pulled apart, you know, and it's like time to let it snap back. That's like an amazing way to look at it, if this is really like confusing math or, you know, geometry and all that. But I think that's the best way to look at it in terms of eclipses. So now we're at this place where eclipses are going to have a much greater effect than, say, they had in 1918. All right, and then this is just the eclipse path right here, okay? And this is, you know, it's right here. So you have Reykjavik, okay? And that's Iceland, Greenland area. Oh, excuse me. Reykjavik, Iceland, Greenland area right in there. Okay, Iceland more specifically though, but Greenland's getting hit. You know, they're both really getting hit there. And then it's also going to move down here, and it's going to go pretty much right over Madrid. And then notice how it like makes a beeline over here at Madrid and then goes back to like over to Morocco. Isn't that interesting? And we have, of course, Spain and Morocco that are in the mix here, that we've just been talking about. Those are like in the mix of what we've been seeing here, that is the eclipse is leading into. So this is just where the shadow falls, by the way. Greenland, Iceland, northern Spain, ending sunset near the Balearics. Exactly, Sedona Angel. You cannot make this shit up. And then, but so this is just the shadow. Now we're going to actually look at like the astrocartography for it. And then look at this astrocartography, okay? So, of course, Uranus is going through right here. And I don't even, this is, it's pretty much going through Ukraine area. Like Ukraine's more over here, but then you have Mars over there too. So it's just really interesting that you got Uranus, but it's specifically going through Europe, closer to the Poland type of area, okay? So I do think there's something kind of we see that begins popping off in Europe. And I don't even think it really reaches its full stage until like mid 2027 or like going into early 2028 or something, but we'll at least see it kind of begin and get started, especially I think around Germany. I've had my eye on Germany. I did the charts for Germany, and we're definitely in this sweet spot because the end of this year going into next year, we've got some stuff going on with Germany, especially the elections too that are coming up. I've seen some more news coming out around Germany, but we'll stay on topic here. And but that's just really interesting, of course, that it goes through the area of Europe it goes through, of course, like dealing with Italy too and all that. But the much more fascinating thing, and what I brought up earlier, is this Mars, okay? And like the Mars right there, it's the Imam Coeli is what it's called. So that's that bottom point of the chart when you're looking at your own natal chart, and it's got, you know, your ascendant, your descendant, your midheaven. This is opposite the midheaven, so the Imam Coeli. So that's not necessarily a line that you look at and you think positive things are coming. On top of it being Mars already, okay, and then look at it. I mean, another thing that like you really can't make this one up. This goes it's straight through the Middle East right here, okay? You've got the western border of Iran, okay? You've got Iraq going on right now. And then there's even some new Iraq news that has come out recently, like they're entering the fold. It's going through Saudi Arabia, you know, Kuwait. It's very close to Kuwait and all of this stuff that's going on by the Strait of Hormuz. And then, of course, down here, United Arab Emirates and everything. And in Yemen, United Arab Emirates and Yemen too. And I forget if it's over here or over here where they've got the capital with like the black cube. But either one would have them within orb anyway. But, you know, pretty much all the action going on in the Middle East is within the orb degree that you look for events on this. So that's just what's really interesting there. And there's I think on another slide we have like deeper stuff in terms of the orbs and all that. Also, we've got a Sun-Midheaven, so definitely a much more positive thing going on. I mean, it's an eclipse, so it doesn't necessarily mean positive, but it's a little bit of a lighter flavor with the stuff going on in the U.S. during all of this. So that's kind of even though we don't get the totality, that's the interesting thing with this is with what we have going on. That's like at least it's midheaven, but we then have like the Pluto Imam Coeli, so there's like a little bit of a balancing, but it's less about this eclipse hitting the U.S. in a major way and more about things going on elsewhere in the world affecting us in a major way. And I specifically think of the oil shipping coming down and all that stuff. That's what that really speaks to me on. And the Pluto part of it dealing with the finance, the debt, all that. So I think that's something that could really come to light, get addressed, that we're not doing as financially well as we think we're doing. The dollar's not as stable as we think. It can be those kind of things. And of course, this is the first of a series of eclipses. So it's like we could see this just start to become a thing where we see not even this major event. Although I have been looking at a major financial thing that happens, shock, that's going to be about, 2 months from this time? Roughly 2 months from this time from when we have this eclipse. So something to definitely keep in mind there. Mars isn't really hitting much, just like some stuff in Canada there. You've got Uranus over there by Hawaii. Interesting to keep your eye on, but really the thing that's really big to look at is Mars, the Mars line that's going right through the Middle East. And that's just, wow. All right, and then the one convergence, Iceland, the greatest eclipse at 62 degrees north, 25 degrees west, and the Uranus descendant line runs through the same island. Uranus sits 1.8 degrees off the descendant in a chart cast for Reykjavik. And so remember, you've got the actual eclipse itself and the totality moving through it, but then you've also got this Uranus. I think that's technically right here is like one of the Uranus lines. It just didn't draw it all the way for me, but you can kind of see it. And there's other lines going here too. But you got that. So that's a convergence right there that you have in Iceland. Out of the entire globe, the two max agree on exactly one place, and it's the deepest point of the shadow. So there is something coming up, and we still haven't heard anything with Iceland yet, guys. But I really think we're going to see something come up around Iceland, just come out of nowhere too, because it's Uranus. It's Uranus. It comes out of nowhere. It shocks everyone. And this could even be when we see the discharge of the Mars-Uranus conjunction. It depends, but Iceland is definitely where it's going to enter the mix here. If it's anything like Spain and how we were looking at Spain just the day before, and then all this Spain stuff happened, that's what you really can expect. Spain takes it in the 8th, so this is what I was talking about. Hey, takes it in the 8th. No. Totality crosses the north. Madrid, Lisbon, and London all take the eclipse in the 8th house of whole sign houses. Okay, yeah, and so this is where you got the other nations. I knew I wrote it down somewhere, guys. But first of all, during that full moon stream I did with Esperanza Bense and Robert Phoenix, okay, they were talking. Robert Phoenix was the one specifically who brought up that it was like Lisbon, London. He brought those ones up, and then I brought it up in Spain that it was in the 8th there. And so this is the cool thing about collaboration. You come up with all these things, but I went and just checked through everything to see, what other countries up there in Europe are going to be having these 8th house transits. And so yeah, don't quote me on Israel, because I actually think what is Israel, like a Taurus rising or like a Taurus? They've got something going on, but I don't remember the chart off. I guess I could pull it up, but anyway, they take these in the 8th whole sign house. Okay, deaths, debts, treaties, foreign money, and then we also have. It's interesting because I'm looking at a lot of Ptolemy. That's what I've been reading a lot of lately is Ptolemy, and he's I believe he's Greek. I always get Greek and Roman confused. Pretty sure he's Greek. Old astrologer, and he's got a lot of different takes on eclipses, and I don't even like to use a lot of his rules, but one of his rules, which is the visibility rule, it actually ends up agreeing with the astrocartography. We won't get into it. It's very complicated, but it agrees with the astrocartography And usually, yeah, like it's going against more modern practices like this. Ptolemy stuff will actually disagree most of the time, and you have to kind of find that sweet spot. But this is somewhere where they do converge and they agree. So that's really interesting. 2027 Sun sits at 9 degrees, 55 minutes in Leo, almost 10 degrees. The degree Jupiter occupies right now. So something in 2027 is going to readdress what this eclipse is highlighting now. So 3 of them in 18 months, of course. August, the one we have coming up here, August 12th of this year. And then next year, August 2nd, and that's going to be southern Spain, northern Spain, southern Spain. So this could be a civil war you see between Spain too. And then there's one between Spain and Portugal. So something out of Spain, something out of Iceland, things that are going to pop off that kind of come out of nowhere. And this is what's so important, guys, because when we were really digging into the way based off of the astrology that I think the world is going to move in to essentially a World War III, is it starts out with just a couple concurrent wars going on, the Ukraine stuff, okay, and then Israel and all that, and then it ends up more and more people enter the fold and are in more localized fights. And so what we could see is Iceland and Spain enter into these world, not against each other necessarily, but enter into this whole world stage and the stuff that's going on. So we really want to keep an eye out for that, but there is just something with all these. And then of course Portugal being in the mix too, and the whole plan is to try to shut down maritime trade and see who can control that. That's the first step of these shifting world hegemonies, shifting world powers, is getting a chokehold on the trade so you can control the rest of the countries, because we're such a trade-oriented thing. We've just had safe trade for so long, it's hard to think about that kind of stuff, but this is really the direction it's heading in. This is why you could see it's such a big deal for them with the Strait of Hormuz in particular, is that it's about really getting a chokehold on the trade. So from whoever wins out there, that's going to determine the moves that are made on the rest of the map so that everyone can have the oil that they need. And the U.S. is going to be a big part of this too. The Asian alliances are going to be a part of this. I use alliances loosely, but just for you to know, I'm talking about the collection of Asian countries over there too. So huge shifting in world power that is going on right now. And really, I think these eclipses where we start to see it, but it's a whole year and a half process, like I said earlier. Yeah, and then this just zooms in a little bit more, guys, so you can see all of the degrees within all this stuff. So Kuwait City, remember I was talking about Kuwait, okay, that's 2.4 degrees within orb, okay. Even Tehran, it's alpha'd out right here because it's not necessarily an acceptable degree, but out to like about 6 degrees is where you see stuff affect, okay. It's just way less common at 6 degrees, but so maybe like Tehran doesn't get hit, but something else gets hit, you know, and that's going to be closer to the western border over here. And then Mahabad, okay, Tabriz, these towns over here, Baghdad, 1.3 degrees off, okay, and then Riyadh too. And of course, we know there's been the stuff that's been going on in Iraq. There's been the Kuwait City stuff that's going on too, especially like the military bases. And then for anyone who doesn't know, this is the Strait of Hormuz right here. Okay, and then you even had the bombings in Riyadh or close to Riyadh, the bases around them. This is, of course, Saudi Arabia. So all of this stuff has been going on. Well, the Mars line's about to go right through. This is where you can see stuff really begin to pop off. Obviously, we're going to have that that Libra Venus, so I think that's the only thing that can temper it from really spiraling out of control. But that Mars I see is still going to be there, and I think there's some violence that really just, it might even like not look like Rafa, you were saying that Venus is in Libra, but like things are getting really bad. You might be thinking this like 3 weeks from now, but like things are really bad, and it's like, no, it'd be worse without the Venus in Libra, trust me, you know. So it kind of needs to soften some of this up, but that doesn't mean I think it's going to go super well over there in the Middle East. So but yeah, Tehran is 5.8 degrees off. This is the periphery, not the capital. So really important there. And but these were the big things I wanted to go over. Let's see what else is on here. 2 capitals, 2 week signatures. Beijing. Okay, that was one thing I didn't bring up too, and that is in the map here, right? Yeah, that's with these lines right here, because this is going to be one of the other Mars lines right here. And you got Beijing, that's very close too. So that's interesting to bring up is Beijing. And then, is there anything else I miss? I mean, I guess you kind of get Finland and all. You get that same line goes through London, who has that eighth house transit going on right now. So maybe there's some financial stuff in Beijing that's going on, especially with the Mars. It would depend on the placement in the chart. That's why I did want to do that chart next of China. But yeah, Beijing, Mars at 1.8 off the ascendant, the tightest angular contact of any capital. But Mars is in Cancer, it's fall, and the eclipse lands in the second. Oh, thank you, AI, for telling me that. It lands in the second house. So it could be very much dealing with the financial stuff with China. So good on me to kind of just think that, but good on my AI to get that covered for me. You know me so well. Angular and debilitated is not an attacker. That reads as a treasury pressure defensive, and there is treasury stuff going on with both Japan and China right now. There's the pressure to buy more stuff from the treasury. So if I was going to guess, what I would say is because of this curtailing of the oil trade that's going on right now, and the fact that the U.S. dollar is a Ponzi scheme, that requires people to buy more and more treasuries in order to keep it going because it's fake, it's a fiat currency. That we're going to be putting more pressure on China to do so. There's already been tension between Trump and China. China's kind of aligning itself with Iran, which honestly is the smart thing to do right now. It doesn't seem like it. Yeah, try telling that to a boomer and they're going to be like, what? No, it's not, but no, it kind of is actually, because like, we can't even penetrate Iran right now. Okay. And then this can be your chance to get out of the whole negotiation situation you have. But this is, there's a whole history with the US too, and I think what this has to deal more with is when you're really zooming out and looking at the financial industrial complex, military industrial complex, and tech industrial complex. There's a reshuffling of the deck that's going on. I think that's what's more accurate. But anyway, Tehran, Saturn 3.8 degrees off the ascendant, retrograde, and in Aries it's fall. Mars sits near the IC, not the rising, okay? And then, so this is going to be Tehran's IC as well, okay? If you're looking in the chart. Weakness at the center, pressure underneath. The line runs through the northwest, 6 degrees away. So we could be even initiating a bigger attack. Seems kind of in conflict with the Libra Venus, but that could even be we do a bigger attack. And Iran wants to finally actually talk negotiation because they've been rebuking any negotiations right now. So both capitals show weak and malefics on the angles, not strong ones. So that's the thing, though. They are weaker malefics. They're not coming in super strong to do hard work. So I feel like they can both use this to their benefit. And it's interesting that both of these cities come up when I'm saying that China's aligning itself with Iran. So there is some pressure that comes up around this. We'll kind of course, keep an eye out and cycle back to this whenever we see what plays out. The Washington contradiction. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of, this is what I already said. I won't get into all this because I'm trying to get to the zodiac signs, but this is essentially talking about how it's not like really, because it's not so visible from the United States, it's not going to affect the United States in the same way. I already kind of gave my take on that, though. I feel like it's peripheral or stuff like dealing with other countries that ends up coming and affecting us in that way. So it's like a peripheral effect. Ptolemy is writing centuries before anyone computes astrocartography. Whether an eclipse degree is on the midheaven of a city that cannot see it counts as a real doctrinal whole, not a subtle question. And yeah, that's essentially what I did. I won't bore you guys with all that. So these are just some timings here that we have with eclipses. And this is specifically the astrocartography. But in 1990s, there was a Mars. Okay, so this is what's really interesting, guys. Not the first invasion of Iraq, okay, or not the second invasion of Iraq, but like the one we all know about with George Bush, but the first time we went into Iraq, okay, this was also a Mars. This was a Mars midheaven, though, not a Mars Imam Coeli. And so Mars midheaven, 1.6 degrees from Kuwait City, Iraq invades 11 days later. And it was a very strong orb that we had right there, and a strong placement. And so that's kind of the type of thing we can expect. This could be when we finally see boots on the ground. This could be a boots on the ground operation at one of those islands, especially because it's on Western Iraq or Iran. So look over here. It's Western Iran, okay? But then, like, right down here, where it's still closest within orb, this is where you have, like, the islands they're talking about. You know that they would do boots on the ground because all of the oil comes from here and, like, down around here somewhere, like, at least to the coast. And then it gets actually, like, processed for shipping out here. So that's what a key place is that they really want to take is, like, right up in here. And that's very close to this. Of course, going to be close to Kuwait City, which is, of course, where the Mars-Midheaven was when we did the first invasion of Iraq. Or that's excuse me, that's when Iraq, because I know we went into Iraq before. This is when Iraq invades like Kuwait City, or they invade something. I don't know. They did some type of invasion because there was that kind of stuff going on in the 90s. So excuse me there. But 1954, okay? And then this is interesting. Uranus ascendant, because we are dealing with that Uranian energy. Uranus ascended from Guatemala, 2.6 degrees from Guatemala City. And then that was when we had like a CIA coup that happened. This gets into United Fruit Company and, you know, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, all the things that we did in the South, South America, that is. So that's just really interesting. So the Iranian stuff can always deal with like coups, with overthrows, that kind of stuff. Interesting to bring up. Then we've got these weaker ones here. I guess we'll just bring up the Spanish Civil War. That's in Neptune. Imam Koweli, 1.5 degrees from Lila. Were we even really looking at the Neptune, guys? I don't think we have any like Neptune there. Not that I'm seeing, so. But that's interesting. But that's like, these are the examples you want to see. And these are the kind of things we can see go on. 10 bodies, 4 angles, 40 lines. At a 6-degree tolerance, a quarter of the Earth is always near one. The hit is the planet, not the proximity. So these are just the vibes we're really looking at, okay? And now we're going to get into the charts themselves. So, excuse me here. Oh, gosh. I've been talking a lot here. I needed some water. A line near an event proves nothing. There are 40 of them. So let's name the planet first, then watch. If the eclipse shows up as military action, I'd expect it, of course, on the Mars line rather than just on some line. And so this is why I bring that up, because you're going to see the relevant thing happening near each line. But that's just what's really important. Across the series, associated events landed at a median of 33 days from the eclipse. So we're looking out to 14 days past the next eclipse, essentially, for this, like 2 weeks past the lunar eclipse on the 28th is the window in which this stuff can happen. But then there's the lunar eclipse as well that's going to come in. So really going up into September and October is where we can see there being this effect. And that early October, late September time period is when we start to get the planets retrograde of Mercury and Venus. And this is going to deal with some kind of way with finance, with debt, with trade, with commerce, and all this stuff. And it's a very heavy, big placement I've been looking at since last year. So very important to bring that up. But this is going to have to deal with us for trusting more in ourselves, and why I went into that astrology the way I did. And I think this is the perfect segue to move into the actual placements for each zodiac sign. So now we're just going to say here really quick what an eclipse actually does, because we talked about it really on a major scale, a little bit on a personal scale, but just specifically in eclipse for you, what an eclipse does, okay? And a regular new moon is a beginning you start, or, you know, a seed you plant. An eclipse is one that arrives. That's why I say it's so. I was very particular to have this in that presentation. Is something that arrives, because I don't want to say that it's forced upon you, or that it's violent, or, you know, I mean, Uranian's a better way, and I did use that word. But you know, you don't want to fear these things, and that's why I say arrives, the arrival. It just kind of gives it a better feeling to it, and it lets you frame it in a better way mentally. The defining feature isn't intensity, it's loss of agency. Things get decided, revealed, or removed, and your job is finding out rather than choosing. That's why eclipse periods feel fated even when nothing dramatic happens. The nodes give it direction. North brings in, south takes out, both involuntary. Okay, and then within eclipse, the house matters more than the sign. The sign is the flavor, of course. The house is which room of your life it happens in. And so when I'm even giving that stuff and I'm talking about, oh, like with more authenticity and having your bravery, it's going to be in that part of your life where it's hitting. Okay. And so we'll get into what those houses are, of course, with all of this. This is kind of some stuff I want to skip for now, but it just talks about different doctrines in terms of the eclipses and what they do. So this is so you can kind of know what I'm pulling from, but I just don't have time to like really go into the specifics of that with you. But yeah, so this is the thing. Most people feel nothing with an eclipse, and yeah, that can be true. I would say my thing kind of that I was thinking when I looked at this slide, I would say that normies feel nothing. Let's be honest. It's the normies. And if you're watching this, you're not a normie. So you know, there is going to be something, especially being more in tune, especially after we had the Mercury retrograde conjunct that new moon. You know, like I think that there's going to be something new you're feeling around this. Because it's just like, then we had the full moon in Aquarius, which is opposite this. So all of these things are getting worked in your chart. So there's something that you'll feel probably, but I think most people don't feel things because you know, it's just happening to them. Life happens to them because they're not conscious individuals. They're normies. Okay, and we love our normies, but let's just be honest about it. There are 4 to 7 eclipses a year. If each rearranged everyone's life, nobody would have a life left. And that's the thing is right now we're at this point where we're down into 4 eclipses per year, and that's just because of the way the planets move. And then remember I was showing how there's been that drift. This has to deal with that drift that we have going on, why we get less eclipses than that 7, why we're getting 4 per year right now. But of course we'll see that this is another thing that adds into what I'm saying, this turning point that we're in. Okay, because we're going to go into having more eclipses and all that. And this kind of speaks to this mutable energy we moved into, this air and fire energy, not having that stability of the earth really underneath us, and having things change a lot as these years progress. And we'll see more eclipses start coming into, and then also see the drift in eclipse season that happens as we introduce new eclipses. And this will bring other houses into the mix, and signs and all that stuff. But kind of just interesting to look at it out at that scale. But yeah, so if you've got, we're going to get into these signs now, but I want to say, if you're between 18 degrees and 22 degrees here of the fixed signs, and actually you could even stretch that out a little bit more too, because this is the sun and the moon. You could really say, because it was 20 degrees that it's happening at, I believe. I thought we said it was like 19, 20 degrees that this is happening at. So really, I would even stretch that out to like 5 degrees. Some people would stretch it out to 8 degrees. For an eclipse, I'd be okay with 8 degrees, but I feel like it's kind of loose. I prefer 5 degrees, but I mean, it is an eclipse. But yeah, for 5 degrees for sure. So really what you could say is like 15 degrees to like 25 degrees is where you really start to hit that. And it's going to be of a fixed sign. So Leo, Aquarius, Taurus. Okay. And then even if you just have those signs, like you have to imagine, like if your sun's not an orb of that, like maybe your Mercury is or something. Mercury is always going to be chilling pretty close. So I would say like 60-70% of people who sun sign this is, like, you're going to be getting hit by this. Okay. So with Leo, it's a conjunction. This is a direct hit. It's going to like definitely do more for you, especially with the things that are being I guess that are arriving. But it's so weird because it's a seed being planted, but it's like because of something that comes in, and then there is this like, it's the south nodes, there's something that like gets taken out. It's just really weird, especially for Leos right now. It'll kind of be this like, I guess you could say clusterfuck, but that makes it sound like a little too chaotic. But that's, you kind of know what I mean. Aquarius, it's the opposition, so it's pulling against you. And especially between now, we'll get into this per sign, but like now and but between now and then the 28th, you know, these 2 eclipses that happen, that's like where you really feel this pulling against you type of thing. And I would even say a choice that needs to be made, a very important choice that needs to be made. And if I'm just thinking off the top of my head right now, what's coming through to me, you could just say I'm channeling this, is that you're one of the few people who gets a choice during this eclipse. You're one of the few signs that actually gets a choice, Aquarius. Okay, Taurus, for me, fun. Sedona Angel, 9 degree Leo rising, 18 Leo moon. Oh, yeah. Well, and you know, it's so funny because here I am moving to Taurus, Sedona Angel, and I'm a Taurus sun. I'm a 23 degrees, is it? It's I always get my sun and my Mercury confused, but they are conjunct. Oh wait, no, that's easy to remember because yeah, okay, so my sun is 23 degrees, my Mercury is 20 degrees, so they're both like right there in square to it. So that's the thing with Taurus here. Square is what you're having, and it's a consequence arriving. So I'm just sitting here like, that's just great. Like, you know. And then Scorpio is kind of the opposite end of that. A demand you can't defer, you know, square, just because of the way that it's working along this square here. A demand you can't defer. That sounds kind of in line with what I've been reading for Scorpios too. And then like a consequence arriving for Taurus. And by the way, I would say it doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. It's more about, it can be something great that comes in, but then it conflicts with something else, you know, because squares shouldn't be viewed as bad aspects. They should just be, they're non-harmonious aspects, okay? They create some type of tension. There's a resistance against these two energies working together, okay? And then, let's see here. Oh yeah, so what we have going on here, this just tells you, you've got the angular, succedent, and cadent, okay? And then this is just like how it's landing. So remember I was talking, this is the angular, which we just talked about. Eclipse lands on an angle. This is the loudest version of it. So this is the conjunction, squares, and oppositions, okay? But then here with Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, okay? It lands where what you hold rather than who you are. Resources, not identity. And so this is going to be dealing with trines and sextiles, I believe, or it could be, or it might be semi-squares and trines, something like that. I'm just kind of doing the math in my head really quick. But then you have cadent. And by the way, with that succedent, it lands on, like I said, it lands on what you hold rather than who you are. So this is like more of a resources type of thing, which I think Capricorn's not going to have a fun time with. But and then cadent. Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces. It works underneath. It's internal, okay? And it's slower to show. So you've got definitely, if you have something being tempered, like if you have an angular placement and then you got a cadent placement going on, it's tempering it, because I have that. That actually will be really good for you, because there is this internal thing that's going that, like it says, it's slower to show, but it allows you to work through it in a much more mercurial and metaphysical way, too, slowly through something more difficult that comes in. Maybe being like, I don't want this to arrive again, or I understand why this arose, and I can start this like slower process on everything, okay? Oh, okay, so we've got Aries right here. Let me just, I'm just looking at something really quick. Okay, so let's get started here with Aries. All right. And Aries is the succedent one that we're talking about here. Oh, Dead Wolf, double Taurus, my man. Yeah, I love that Taurus energy. I'm just a single Taurus here, but I do love my Taurus energy. It kind of saves me, honestly. So, succedent. Aries here. Okay, and then remember with the succedent, guys, I'm just going to go back one more time here. You know, so you just have this right here. You can go back in the thing, but this shows like what they all are, okay? But for this succedent, of course, this is going to deal with what you're holding, with your resources and all that. And then with that one too, okay. So we've already been looking at a lot of what this is doing for Aries here. Okay, and this is dealing with that fifth house stuff. This is about like reconnecting with taking the spotlight, okay, stepping into the spotlight, all these things. There's this reconnection that's been going on with that, and also having like a baby, a pet project, like these types of little things. These are the things that have been coming through, but there is something that's been holding you back, Aries, okay? So this can really pull, okay, this can pull something out so that something else can come in. That's like really the big thing that happens. Or this can even be the ending of that thing you've been working on if you got an early start at it. But this could also be like those creative blocks that come back through, okay? That's allowing you to go in this direction that you've been wanting to make for yourself, because you have to remember, this has been about being able to see a new version of yourself that can come in this whole year. And then now is the reflection piece on it, okay? Because we've got the retrograde of Saturn and Neptune right there, okay? But there's been this incredible like self-transformation as an Aries that you've been going through. Things that you've been changing about yourself, maybe that you thought would never change, that maybe were limiting yourself. Having this view of the way in which your life can look going forward here. So there's that. But let's see here. What does it say? A creative project ends, shipped, shelved, or killed. Either way, it stops being yours to carry. And so it's so interesting because, yeah, I brought all that up, all this stuff up in the prior readings. And then this is like what we've got here, okay? Is that there's this creative project that's ending, okay? There is this thing that you've been working on, but it could be the same thing I was talking about, where there's been a creative block that's coming in, and this creative block is now going to come out. So something else can come in that can help you channel that creativity. There's also the love thing too, that I've been bringing up with this, with all the Aries stuff going on. There is this love stuff that really needs to be looked at, and it could be maybe loving the wrong person, loving the wrong thing, finding out you're no longer in love with a person, which is kind of opposite of what Aquarius has been going through. Aquarius is kind of falling back in love with the person that like maybe they were having personal stuff going on. But no, with Aries, it's kind of like I've just fallen out of love with this person. I'm super in my authenticity right now. I'm feeling these new things with the way I'm going about life. I can't take this person with me. Like, I'm no longer in love, you know. Or you meet someone, you're in a partnership, you meet someone and they like change everything and they teach you what chemistry really is. It's those kind of things right now. And so that like leads to number 2, a romance that was never going to become a partnership ends. 5th house, not 7th. Okay. So, and you know, it's funny because I bring that up. You can have, specifically, you can have someone come in that you know is just temporary and they teach you what that chemistry is, but then this could be that person came in earlier, because this is what I've been talking about in the previous one. So it could have been that person already came in and then you see that ends. Okay, that you're like, ooh, okay, like that really made me tap back into my creativity, but now it's time to move on and everything. This isn't really like a long-term thing, especially as Venus goes into the 7th house here too. Venus is going to be in Libra by that time. That's when you're going to kind of know like, ooh, this isn't you know, wifey material or husband material or whatever. And something that's really funny too that I read, and I like have been taking this to the bank, but like pay attention to the people when you have a 6th house transit, or a Virgo transit specifically, but it's Virgo or 6th house transit of Venus. You can find yourself being attracted to people you're not typically attracted to. And then by the time it leaves that sign, you're like, oh, what was I thinking? And so this is what that tells me, is like Venus comes out and it's like, oh, what was I thinking? That was never going to work, especially going into your 7th house though, particularly. But like, you know, that being, of course, Libra, and definitely being wanting more of that beautiful aesthetic to it, very different than being in Virgo too. So that Venus is playing a lot off of it as well. But I just want to say, because this could be someone coming in during eclipses and that ultimately isn't going to stay. You have to remember that other eclipse is coming and that's going to be dealing with the North Node. So, you know, as a general rule, you can say, okay, it's going to take things out, but is every single person going to see that? I wouldn't think so, if I'm going to be honest. And I have to go with what comes through, what I kind of channel and comes through. So the 11th fills, whatever you were making alone, the next version comes through people. So definitely be willing to take on new people, new relationships, especially leading in to this new eclipse Aries, okay? And then number 3, a speculative position closes out. A bet you'd have forgotten resolves. And with this one, I mean, I would say this is less about like an investment. This is probably more of like a person you invested in. It's probably like more of a person that you like put your faith in or invested in. It could be that you lent them money, but it's like someone that you like put some energy into and maybe even just forgot about, that it like comes back around. So I would say this is like a good karma kind of thing too. Karma balancing is a good way to put it too. A karma balancing that's going on, because not too long after this you're going to have Venus that opposes Saturn in your 1st house too. So that's something I could really see start to come in. But that's what we've got going on for Aries. So Aries is honestly probably going to fare the best Not like the best, but you're one of the few that will like fare the best there. All right, and then angular. So with the angular ones, remember angular is it's that the angle aspects that we're dealing with, okay? And so specifically for Taurus here, what it was saying for Taurus in that one is that there's a consequence that arrives for Taurus. Okay, and I am a Taurus, so as for however real I'm going to get with you guys, okay, remember I am a Taurus, so I can kind of I deserve to go to be a little bit ruthless, okay? But the foundation empties home, family, land, the parent, the base you work from, okay? And so this is the thing that's been going on with the Taurus readings I'm doing, is there is something that's going on within the home. Okay, there's been all this home stuff going on about homework, beautifying the home, all of these things that have been coming in. It was really just you were dealing with a lot of these dynamics that just dealt with the home base. Okay, and it could be like this beautifying of the home. Also, how your daily routine, your daily interaction in your health is so connected to the home situation. So these are all things we've been talking about, but there's something that's maybe been realized, especially recently, that's going to need to come out, that's going to be needed to be taken out for you to go the way and the direction that you're wanting to go. There's going to be needing to be something left behind. So this is going to deal with a little bit of the comfort, okay? There's maybe this comfort that you've been in, and you have to like allow some of that to fall to the wayside, to be removed, and it will come in through more of a forceful way. These are the harder placements we're talking about, guys, and Taurus has that hard placement. So and then, but let's see right here, like a move you didn't choose, the lease ends, or a family situation forces it early. And so I'm even looking at this for myself, like, and the things I have going on. I've got all this whole house work that's going on right now, and I'm like, it's going to be something with that. Maybe I have to put like a hold on housework. I don't know, because they're still working on it. It's insane, guys. But this is, something I'm kind of like, oh yeah, this freaking tracks, all right. But of course, Venus is going to go into that sixth house too. So besides the health stuff that comes up with it too, this is like maybe picking up, which is tough to say to a Taurus here, but needing to pick up an extra job or find extra ways to make money. And now I've even personally seen like new avenues of money coming in, new ways that I can make money, and that's been really useful to me. And I think it is going to be centered around this eclipse. So it's mainly this fourth house stuff though. And then also through the stuff that you allow to fall away, that comfort that you allow to fall away, and everything that is going to deal with stuff around that the home life, okay, then you could have something come in through your 10th house. Then you can have something come in through career, through the direction you're heading, especially as the Saturn has went retrograde with Neptune, as we are reevaluating all these things around like the way that you've been setting up your life since February, essentially, since mid-February, these new moves you've been making, the new structures you've been putting in place, all these things. So, and then this can also just be family itself. So a parent's circumstances change and the family reorganizes around the new shape, okay? So, Venus going into the sixth there in Libra too, this is going to deal with those like closer relationships with the other person, and then there's the health. So this could be like a health issue with a member of the family too, and that's what changes these things. But it's just very Taurus, we don't like change, and that's the thing, is this is making a square to us, okay, to our sign. So like there's going to be some change involved. There's going to be a consequence that arrives, and it can be a consequence of the good karma. Like you can see good stuff come in during all of this, but just know there's going to be a tension around the change that is so difficult for a Taurus to go through, And I think out of all the fixed signs, change is the hardest for Taurus, personally. That's like, maybe it's because I am a Taurus though. I could be biased, but I do, even though I kind of like change, but I'm always just like, okay, let's get this over with. But yeah. And then you stop being able to work from where you've been working. And so, this is another thing where I'm like, oh gosh, are they going to find something else wrong with my home and they're going to have to start fixing up the office? These are just examples with my own personal life. But to kind of figure out, okay, this is going to kind of get you up and moving and stuff. And all of the signs have this in different ways, though, going in to this eclipse season and going into next year, specifically next year and the year after, is it's less about sitting still. We've been given the opportunity to move into this and grow, but it's a lot of air and a lot of fire. It's a lot of mutability that we're dealing with, and cardinal energy. And so what this speaks to is that it's going to be a lot less around about like lounging around or being leisurely, and more about like, okay, this thing has happened. I gotta like be like bend with the wind and like do this, and that to adjust for it. So, and as a Taurus, that is harder to do. We're slow and we're steady. So these are just things to know as a Taurus that are going to be really, really important. Okay. Good to see you, Esperanza. I know you do always get here just in time, right? I'm just catching up on everything there. Okay. I know my hand, dude. That's like I have to talk with my hands. I swear. I'm such a. Maybe it's my Gemini 10th house or something. But you've got okay. Okay, so Gemini here, and for Gemini, it's cadent that we're getting into. Okay, the cadent, and then this is more dealing with the resources. Remember when we were talking about cadent? This is the resources stuff here. So this can typically deal with, of course, your resources too, and like an adjustment to them. So this is going on in your third house too, and it's so funny because with Gemini too, like I would only say this maybe for Gemini and maybe like Aquarius or maybe like Libra, too. But you can almost view people as a resource. You can view people as a resource here. And so the near environment empties siblings, neighbors, daily speech, the local. And then July 4th, that was the Mars-Uranus conjunction that you had, okay? And then, of course, that was in your first house. And this is, so like really, like there was a big installation that happened leading up to that as all the other planets had crossed over that. So this has been, at this point, like the last 2 months, I believe. But you had like this new let's just say a new operating system that was installed, okay, that dealt with your emotional body, your mental body, your intuitive space, and all that. And because of this readjustment, there's new things you're noticing around people, whether it's like your family members, siblings, specifically, but it can just be family members because we're dealing with the fourth house stuff too. Depending on where everything falls for you, there's the fourth house stuff going on. So there's that going on already. You've had Jupiter come in. It's now done that Cazimi with the sun, just been reborn. This chalice is ready to be filled. Mercury's going to come up to it here too. And you've got that Mercury, what it's been doing, all of that. There's that mental integration, but then this is also going to be dealing with the people around you. So this digs even further and deeper into new people being able to come in, especially when you get that fifth house, Venus, right there going into Libra, people that you can forge contracts with, relationships with, that stuff, or just like get to know on a closer level. Even I like to think that's when you start to move over into Libra, knowing people on this closer and more intimate level too. But there's that coming in, more specifically the contracts though. So this is going to deal with your work and how you work with people. And that's what I noticed with Geminis more than any other sign, is that you can totally be like a freelance worker or have multiple jobs that you do, multiple ways you take in income. And so that's that's one of the big things. But then you have to also look at, this is a South Node eclipse. So what's leaving right now? Who are the friends that need to leave? What is the stuff you need to walk away from because of this new stuff that's coming in, which is going to be more of this Jupiterian vibe of this new stuff that's coming in. Okay. There's that Jupiterian vibe. And then, so it's like, it could be traveling somewhere, but this could be going back to school. Maybe I need to go back to school. So I'm going to need to pull away from this type of content, or this one job over here, but through going back to school, this new thing has opened up for me. Okay, there's even something like that. But yeah, a platform or outlet you've used to speak stops working. The local scene stops holding you, and you can't unsee it. And this can deal with also like get-togethers. When you go, there's just something extremely social about a new internal understanding you have about yourself that really is speaking to just something giving you, I would say this is even something giving you the ick all of a sudden. You're like, I just am like so good on this. And it is going to deal with other people. It's going to deal with other people, the way that they're communicating their ideas, maybe ideas you don't want to be exposed to anymore, all of that. And then this is where you really, I would say, there is this all of this energy from the last couple of months, though, you're going to identify the point at where it's coming from, and you'll be able to split off from it. That's the thing. Because it's been like, because what I've noticed for all, it's really for all the signs, but almost all of them. But for Gemini specifically, I keep going back to older and older readings that I've done already and being like, oh, don't forget about this, don't forget about that. But it's like, this is the culmination event of all of the stuff. And then from that, all of a sudden, there's like less baggage. I feel like this is going to lighten your load and lighten the baggage, Gemini. So that's what I would say for this full moon specifically. Definitely dealing with people, with your daily environment, though, and something you no longer want to be around. All right, and then Cancer here. And Cancer is where we're dealing with the succedent here, okay? And I think, oh gosh, I'm already like forgetting the different ones here, but I think that's more of the internal process with the succedent, if I'm correct. Yeah, that's that internal process that you're going to be going through. So this is like where you can. Well, it's interesting here because you're dealing with it in the second house, which is really going to deal with resources. Okay, like say the Gemini one, like all of the oh gosh, what's the word? The cadent ones. Okay, but this is like dealing with the internal process, but it's the internal process that deals with the second house. So a big thing that's coming up for me that really falls into both of these energies is a self-worth kind of thing. Self-worth in terms of the money maybe you're charging for something, or it could just be self-worth of just in general. Maybe you're noticing that because you have to remember during all this time leading up to this, Venus was going through the third house on this, okay? So this could have been where people, either you yourself were hard on yourself for like your physical appearance or just your self-worth in general, or people around you were like really harsh towards you. And then this can even lead into the big stuff we're talking about with all the self-worth right in here. And then the thing that needs to leave in order for you to have more self-worth, because we get this interesting push and pull. This is why I bring up, it would be a much more straightforward reading for all of these if we had it to where there was no Jupiter or even no south node. Or I guess, I mean, you sometimes get that. That's not, but specifically the Jupiter. If there was no Jupiter in there, it'd be different. But Jupiter is expanding whatever it touches, while things are also coming out, okay? Jupiter is, like I say, the planet of too much. So you've got things that are rapidly rushing in while things need to be taken out. And so I'm just kind of speaking to this dynamic here as you're going to see beautiful new things come in around self-worth, okay? And around like what your worth is too. What, like, it can be, like I say, like what you charge people and stuff like that too. But where you even have all of that come in, or making sure that you're asking for enough at work. We just finished out with that Mercury retrograde. So this is where you could really evaluate what was going on with your current work contract if you want to look for another job. It's all of that kind of stuff that's going on, especially because you got Saturn and Neptune in your 10th house, and now we're in the retrograde period too. So there's that aspect that comes into it. Okay, but there is going to be something that needs to come out. And it'll be something that you thought you maybe felt comfortable in because you have that south node there. But the Jupiter is really getting ready to fill that up. It's ready to fill its chalice with that. And then, of course, you got Mercury approaching it. And so with that Mercury approaching it, it's really dealing, I always want to bring up with Mercury, like, sure, it's friends, it's siblings, it's communication, but it's commerce as well. And so what kind of self-limiting beliefs have I had too around money, around like maybe thinking my money will always be a certain way, or like I'm only worth this, and that? What self-limiting beliefs have I had that have been keeping certain connections from coming in, okay? But then also certain commerce. And when you're combining that Mercury with Jupiter, this makes for a time where if you let something fall out of your life, this amazing new thing can come in, and it can help you reach that next level you've been really trying to reach. And so we'll read here. I don't even think I read any of this yet. The full moon crowned in your second, and the instruction was, the full moon was crowned in your second. The instruction was not to exhaust it. This is the audit. And so, of course, the full moon was in the 8th, but that means it crowned the second because of that opposition we had going on with Pluto and the moon and that. So that's just what that means, so you know. But the full moon crowned your second. The instruction was not to exhaust it. This is the audit. This is what you kept is what you keep. And this did, of course, deal with that 8th house energy too, with starting to pay things off, making sure you're not spending your money as you get it. And this really deals into that last reading we gave of the cup. You know what I mean? Like allowing your cup to be filled a little bit more and not feeling like you need to spend money as you get it or need to. That's like the big thing that comes with, but you can think of it as an analogy for anything that is really dealing with those second house themes. So it could be even like self-worth, like seeking someone out for self-worth instead of just having it within yourself. It could even be something like that. But an income stream ends and it's the one you assumed was stable. You sell or release a possession and it lands harder than its value explains, okay? And so that's the thing right here. It says the 8th fills, money starts arriving through someone else. Watch for the handoff. And this is where you really want to take that cup here and make sure it's fully emptied so you can allow that to start to fill up. Because this is going to be a process that lasts longer than your typical lunation will last, like say a new moon. Of course, this is a new moon, but it's an eclipse. So it's going to kind of spread out really for the next year and a half is where you see that spread out. Ptolemy would even argue that you see it based off of there's like a degree type thing going on with that, with how Ptolemy does it. And I figured for this one, it was 4 degrees. I forgot what that's even for, but he would say for every degree of whichever this theory is that you add 1 year to it. And so like Ptolemy would even say that it would last for 4 years out from now. That gets complicated for me, and I don't really necessarily agree with that, but you kind of get what I'm saying. But ultimately, that's what really this is about. It's going to deal with other people. It's going to deal with your own self-worth, the own way you viewed money in the past, how you've been restructuring how you view that going in, like from the last month going into now, and then how you can take away and like let things clear out to really hit this next level and have the amazing glow up too. With Cancer, it's been a lot of these harder things that we're talking about money, but now it's time for the glow up now that the money stuff has really been addressed. And even debts and stuff like that, maybe debts getting paid off too. This is something we've been bringing up, but perfect for Cancer, especially after Jupiter going through your first house and everything. It probably will be nice to have it be in your second house now. All right, and then we've got another angular one with Leo, and so these are going to be the harder aspects here. For Leo, it's the conjunction though, so a little bit better than dealing with the squares or the opposition, but definitely still a heavy hitter. Okay, eclipse in the first. Okay, the self empties, body, name, the version of you people have been dealing with. And this really speaks to what we've been talking about with the Leo energy, has just been this new version of you that comes in. And it can be dealing with a lot of different things. But when we're looking at the placements here of everything, before we had, like when we had the full moon that was going on, it was about like new contracts that came in, just like literally anything that you sign with other people too, especially Aquarian too. When you're looking at Aquarian stuff, this can be this can be like looser business associations. This can be clients that you serve, renegotiating fees and all that. But then this can also just be like a new contract, like a lease thing too, because especially Aquarius with the 7th house, that reads to me as like roommates. You know what I mean? And so there's something that came up around that, understanding that that's like with the moon there, it can be understanding that that is dead or it needs to die. And so maybe it comes in for the eclipse, but it could already be there too. And then with all this first house stuff though that's been coming in, this is the expansion of the self. This is the next level and the glow up, and the sun burning that Jupiter right now, what it's been doing. And once we get to this point, it will have already ended that Cazimi, gotten out of orb and all that. So once you're out of that orb here, coming up on that, that's where you really get to fill up that cup, where new people can start to come in who are actually going to serve this new level that you're on as a Leo, because of the way things have been shifting throughout this whole entire year. And then, of course, I double back to that Saturn and Neptune, and how that's been separating, how they're both in retrograde right now, where there is this reconsideration, redoubling back on belief systems you held, on the way you had integrated belief systems within yourself too, and thinking things would always be a certain way, even on a subconscious level too, thinking things would always be a certain way, but then they can be this way particularly or something. And then, of course, You had the Mars-Uranus conjunction that happened in your 11th house. While that was happening, you did have that the Venus in your second house too. So this really can be either distancing yourself from people who you could identify out of nowhere, like we're keeping you from your self-worth, keeping you from making money, that kind of stuff. But then also this can be an unexpected person that came in that has, like, say, a different outlook, a different view on money, on lack mentality, on these things that has helped you. And then you've noticed your life get better ever since talking to this person. Then it goes into the third house. That's where you can see, this is where you can see another thing because of that person who may have came in, because of whatever that dynamic was. Then it's helping you identify the last thing that needs to leave, that you need to, like, maybe unintegrate from yourself. I don't know if that's the best way to put it. But the last little bit of emptying to your cup, to your chalice to do, so Jupiter can really start its work on changing just the way that you, I mean, I want to say the belief systems, you know, that's what I want to say. That's kind of what I've been going into with Leos is dealing with the belief systems and everything, because it's just these trines that you have that will be going on to Saturn and Neptune, you know, like I'm not seeing the degrees here, but, you know, like loosely speaking, these trines that are going on into Aries, I mean, it's really dealing with coming into better belief systems, better things that you think about yourself, about, maybe you could say the world too, but just specifically being in a better place, a more beautiful place, especially to, once that Venus moves into Libra, that's when it's going to be real. That's when it will feel real. And then, but yeah, some last little thing that needs to come out. But then once it does, the beautiful thing about once it does come out is there's a, like, say, a payoff over here, okay? Because we have that next eclipse that's still going to technically be in your 8th house of Pisces. So it's like there's this one last little thing that comes in. It could be a person from your past you haven't talked to in a long time, and then they, like, I don't know, bring you a business opportunity, or, I mean, it could be helping you invest in something, or even like randomly giving you money, which, like, sounds kind of weird, but that's the Pisces 8th house energy too. Or it doesn't even need to be a person. It can just be like another thing, because there's been some stuff already with Leos that I've seen. And I know, like, quite a few Leos here, so I'm not even talking about one in particular. Literally, like, all the Leos I know in the last couple months, they had some type of money come through that they weren't expecting to come through in, like, this really interesting way. So this could just be another round of the money coming through as well. You have that going on. But ultimately there's something that kind of comes out of nowhere with that 8th house, like 8th house being a hidden house, Pisces also being a hidden sign. You got those together. There's something financial that comes through that you just, like, were not expecting there. And it's really going to have to deal with how you've been revolutionizing yourself, I think, just with the play off of it. But it could be a person from the past. And in the very worst situation, a person from the past that comes in that reminds you of, like, oh, this is what I left behind. No thanks. You know what I mean? It could be that too. And we're talking about the next eclipse, but they're going to play off of one of another. So let's go ahead and read this. Jupiter just crowned you at the full moon. This strips the older version so that the new one has room. The crown stays, the person wearing it changes. A public-facing role or persona comes off. Not an emotion. You stop being the person who does that. I like that. That goes with what I was saying for sure. A physical change that isn't cosmetic. The body ends a habit, the will couldn't. That really, really applies, I would say, to the Leos that I know. And it couldn't have been worded any more beautifully. The 7th fills. What you lose in self-definition returns as another person. And so it's interesting because I was specifically looking at Pisces and just bringing the person in, but you do have that play going off of the 7th because, of course, you got the node going in there. So that even adds more to what I said right there. Let me get caught up with chat here. I'm all done with Leo, though, but let me get caught up with chat. I've seen a few things here. The dead wolf, you want to disappear into the mountains this year? I feel it, dude. Oh, last haying season. Okay. You said that for the last 2 years. We'll see, right? Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, well I hope you like the Leo reading. It's the thing with having, like, what is it, like 4 Leos that I'm pretty close to these days is that it helps me a lot with the Leo readings for sure. And I think part of it is that you guys rule authenticity, so it's like I know what I'm getting when I'm talking to you, and it's very easy to like draw all the connections between all of you guys. All right, Virgo. Yay, Virgo. Oh gosh, guys, this is my sign. No, okay. We'll do the reading here. And you know, the thing with Virgo, I was looking at Virgo a little bit earlier too, just because I wanted to know what's going on for me. So alrighty, guys, I kind of already got this one prepared, but the thing with Virgo, and it's so weird because of the readings we've already went into, like it's almost counterintuitive because I'm saying like, oh, you know, this is going to be your year to stay behind the scenes, and like next year is your big year and all that. But like this is this window where you get a preview for what that's going to look like next year. So it's like you're going to be thrust onto the scene, and then after being thrust on the scene, you're going to have to like curtail and then like kind of go back into this 12th house mode for a little bit with Jupiter. So it's this weird, interesting play, but it will kind of give you an idea of how to step into the role you're going to step into next year without it being harmful to yourself, to your health. Because that's what's really important for a Virgo rising, is like if things get too stressful, it messes with your health on such an insane level, and it can completely debilitate you. So this is really telling you how to fully step into this fire and air energy and be safe about it and still be able, because you have the mutability for it, but you are earth. You know, you are a sign of the earth, so you have to know how to like do it. And Virgo is like there's a very soft, there's a softness to Virgo. You know, I mean, it's the service oriented, it's the health, but there's like that service thing too, and it's the daily grind. Like if you have this, just speaking of the Virgo sign specifically, if you've got a daily routine that isn't good for you, that starts to show very fast, and that shows you the softness of Virgo, if you're getting what I mean. But let's go ahead and read this here. The hiding place empties. Secrets retreat. Institutions, what runs behind the scenes. I've told you twice, stay behind the scenes. This is the eclipse that takes the hiding place away, okay? Treat it as the sneak peek, a short, slightly forced preview of what center stage feels like before Jupiter actually reaches your first next summer. Okay. And then also this can be like something private that comes out. This is the thing I forgot to say. There can be like, I mean, if you're a Virgo, you really shouldn't be having a lot of secrets. It just doesn't end well. I'm going to be honest with you. You should kind of be an open book as much as you can. Sorry to say it. But if you got something that you've been keeping really private, you don't want anyone to know about, that you can see something like that come up too. Okay, something private ends, a secret, an arrangement, a habit nobody knew about. So that's like the really big thing too. If you've came into a lot of this energy and then been really I don't know, like say you started drinking like by yourself or something and no one knows, and it's like, oh well, I'll just have one tonight. It's like, oh well, I'll just have two tonight, and it's been compounding out of control. It's like that kind of energy, you know. That all of a sudden it reaches this boiling point where it hits your health, because you have to remember the North Node is going into your 6th house, and there's going to be an eclipse there too. If you're noticing something that's taking a toll, or that is just becoming noticeable in your health now, it will definitely come out and become noticeable by the time we hit the lunar eclipse on the 28th. So make sure you address that. Make sure you take that out, you know, because it's about removing things, and it's 12th house stuff. So this is going to deal with, this specifically can deal with like substances. This can be lies that you tell yourself, lies that you tell other people, secrets, all of these things you want to be really careful about. Or even a disassociation that you're involved in too. Because it's one thing to be in your 12th house and be behind the scenes. It's another to completely dissociate in a time where we're meant to be moving away from that Pisces energy in a bigger way, okay? And so it's interesting that we're going to have this eclipse that comes in. That's really the biggest thing that you're seeing right there, Virgo. So more of a difficult one, but remember, part of this is a sneak peek of stepping into the scene. And so because it's Leo in that 12th house, it's like, just because you step away doesn't mean you get to carefully manicure and put things and have things look a certain way for everyone else, because what happens if it's not actually that way? When you do step out onto center stage, people are going to know you're not being in your authentic self. And so the you that you are in private needs to match the you that you are in person, so you can bring forward that Virgo rising sense of service, or the Virgo in general, the Virgo sense of service that you bring to the world. And that is going to be so important next year when Jupiter is in that house, when you're going around and actually performing all the Virgo stuff, helping people with their health, if you're more of a healer on that healer level, or even just being of service to people. Okay, there's like this certain level that you bring as a Virgo here that helps other people by just you being yourself. And that's the whole point, though. You need to be yourself, so make sure you get those things in alignment, okay? Because that is, it's right here on this axis here where we had the full moon that was going on, and that full moon was powerful. It set up the stage for all of this stuff. So that's what we got for Virgo in the 12th house. Definitely a heavier one, only heavier if you've kind of been having secrets going on, or if you just have been a little too tucked away, or it's just so much about being authentic. If you're completely authentic all the time, you really have nothing to worry about with this. But the thing that will be taken away is kind of your hidey hole for a little bit, and you'll be forced to step out. And then it's kind of like a quality assurance on what you've been doing in your 12th house energy, what you need as a Virgo, because the 12th house energy is opposite of the Virgo energy. So you do need that. You need that check. All right. So we've got, or let me read chat here. Gotta lock those videos to private until certain NPC characters assume room temperature. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I feel like we're talking so much about NPCs and normies tonight. I love it. And then even in the group chat earlier, I was seeing that too. Okay, so Succedent with Libra here, okay? And then this is going to be in the 11th house. So we're kind of, obviously, we're going through all the signs in order. So we were just at the 12th. Now we're in the 11th house. Well, the 11th house. So the interesting thing with this, with Libra here, is you had all of this stuff that came in, okay? Libra, or Libra rising, you know? You had all the stuff that came in. I feel like it was literally the last moon. I was even talking about, you know, new friend groups, but then also like evaluating the friend groups. And so there's been this reorganization, but this is networks too. So this can also be through stuff at work, people you associate with at work. Perhaps you've got a workplace where you can be very friendly with people, where you can talk to people, where people that you work with or work on too, like clients and all that stuff, end up becoming kind of loose friends because you see them on a repeated level. All these things, any of these things happening, these are where you can see all of a sudden a thing shift around it, something being taken out so something new can come in. This could be a client that you have that is limiting the direction you want to take your career. This can be your career actually sending you out to meet new people too. But because of that, there's something that needs to be left behind, okay? There, you know, it's just this interesting play where things are filling up in this area, but then things are also needing to be left behind in this area. So that's really the big thing right there. Of course, you've got the Saturn and Neptune retrograde. This is going on in your 7th house, long-term commitments, contracts, that kind of stuff. So it could be like marriage type of stuff. And that's what I'm even saying. If you're in this long-term relationship and you have this direction that your career can go, because remember, you're going to have Mars coming in at the same time into your 10th house. And it's, you know, we've already went into the whole spiel about Mars earlier and really what it's doing in Cancer. But the whole thing is, with it coming into your 10th house, there's just career trajectory that you can go on. And the only thing that can limit it are, you know, the 7th house relationships you're in. And this is why they're in retrograde. So this is business stuff. This is marriage stuff specifically, okay? And then the ways that it can look, and maybe a renegotiation around those things or ending those things. But this amazing stuff that can come in through that can connect you with the wider world and put you onto this bigger career path, this bigger path with everything you want in your life, because there's the 10th house stuff. There's the Saturnian stuff you've already done in your life this far. So you've got that. And so those play off of each other with the Mars coming in, especially with what Mars has been going through. And you got to think about this as the last stretch of Mars, because that Mars, by the time it gets to, what is it, like Libra or something, and it's going to go retrograde at the end of the year. So you're in this last stretch of Mars where it's going to start to hit these good placements, especially in Leo. Okay. And then once you have that, it's kind of like, did you move on what you could have moved on right here? And so we'll read this part here, and then we'll kind of tie in what I just said into the stuff that it puts down here. A friend group dissolves, or you leave it, usually quiet. Attendance just stops. A community you belong to changes shape, and you're no longer inside it. A long-held goal gets abandoned, and the relief is the tell. And that's kind of the thing here, okay? So, like, what's the goal that you had maybe at the beginning of the year? Was this goal to be, and I have to say this because it is Libra, and so a lot of people won't lean in as much on the Libra stuff as I will, but I think it's actually really useful, because my whole thing with Libra is I feel like they're probably the only sign. You could maybe say Aquarius as well, Aquarius rising to be specific though. But with Libra, they grow as people, and then this is why it can be hard to understand a Libra, but they grow as people much more through being in a committed relationship, you know. And it's hard to say that because we've got this culture, and I'm even one of these people who agrees with this, like, generally for the most part, but we got this culture that's like, no, you need to be alone to really like get to know yourself and understand yourself. But with a Libras actually kind of need to be in a relationship to grow in a certain way. It's not that if you're a Libra you have to be in a relationship to grow, but there is a level of growth that Libras get out of relationships that no other sign gets. Okay. And so that's what's really important. But what this is doing for the Libras right now is, if you're in that committed relationship, it's like, have I gotten everything I can out of this? Is it getting to the point where it's like hurting, like it's hindering me, and I have goals that I'm not achieving? Do I need to leave this relationship behind? This can, of course, be the business contracts too. But the thing that's kind of coming through me right now is just like a relationship itself too. And then there becomes this tension point here of, are you going to, and it's not so much about just a friend group, but there's all these networks that you have, and going into these networks, whether it's a friend group, whether it's work advancement and all that stuff, will take away from the relationship that you have, the intimate relationship or the business contract. It can be either one of those, or would cause a renegotiation around that stuff, and which can be hard. But if you're not hitting the goals that you set out at the beginning of the year, check out, your New Year's resolutions and all that stuff, then it's like you kind of need to lean into that 11th house and take time away from the relationship, not be completely wrapped up in the relationship. That's what's really important. But of course, that you can apply this to work too. Maybe an old work thing that you have, an old work commitment that you have too. It can be something like that. It's tough to say, but people, of course, especially when you're dealing with air signs, they can have multiple jobs. So this can be an older work commitment that you have, that you kind of fulfill once in a while. This gets into like more of the air signs with freelance work and stuff like that. But it could be something like that too. And it's like, okay, I can't even like commit to this on the level, and it's just a relief to leave this behind. So it can be that. But there is something around relationship, around contracts, around commitment that you need to definitely take a look at, so that you can allow this expansion in the people you interact with, the career trajectory, and the way that you want to be able to view yourself in like 2 years, specifically in 2 years, because there's going to be this playoff of Jupiter when it comes into your first house, which is really going to deal with right now, because when it's in your 12th house, that's going to be where it's really hard to get a lot of these things done. You can get them done right now, or work super hard against it in the future here. I did not expect Libra to be that long, but I just like kind of, something just came through for me. This is I'm not always channeling when I do a reading, but like I really have been channeling a lot in this. So good thing, I guess we're almost done, right? Because it's definitely taxing. Okay, so we've got angular Scorpio. I think is this the last angular one that we have? I guess Aquarius will be the last one. But yes, angular. So this is really good. What's going to deal with the the tougher aspects. I mean, it's the squares, so it's more of the tension within the aspects when we're looking at the Scorpio and it being an angular placement in terms of with this eclipse. But with this, if you remember, we were looking, there was a consequence that arrives when we were looking at Taurus. That's the other sign, the opposite sign of Scorpio. But excuse me. But with Scorpio, what we have is there's like a demand that comes in. There's a demand that comes in that needs to be met. Okay. And it's going to depend on, I mean, 'cause this stuff is like crazy happening in your 10th house. So typically this is going to deal with career trajectory. As a Scorpio, you've probably seen recent advancement in the workplace, or you can feel that recent advancement coming on. This is where you can see that coming in. Okay. This is where all of a sudden, like, you could see your boss leave, or, you know, maybe people have recently been fired and it wasn't done properly, and then your boss gets fired, or something weird like that. There's some like weird technicality that comes in. Yeah, when I'm looking at it, there's like some weird technicality, especially with those retrograde planets going on, especially specifically with Saturn having just gone retrograde, because before Saturn went retrograde, we were talking about this too. Before Saturn went retrograde, we were talking about how, okay, there's going to be this like shuffling going around within your workspace. You're going to finally be seen and get recognized. And that may not have even come yet, but you can definitely start to see it around and past this eclipse. A more of a recognition that comes in, but then also something that comes out of the 10th house. And that can be a bot, because it's authority too. 10th house, Saturn, Capricorn, that's authority, okay? And so this can be an authority figure that quits, that exits, or something is forced out. And then through that allows you to shine more. You can step in and take that position, something like that. Or you just get promoted within that position. And through that promotion that comes in, there is something that you need to shed. You know, and it's going to deal a lot with that Pisces energy too, with Pisces being in your 5th house, because remember, the next eclipse is in Pisces. So that's 5th house. So that's going to be like, oh, okay, it'll take away from, I guess, like the joy that I feel, or the time I can spend with my children, or these types of things. But then, of course, 4th house, opposite end of the axis. So it's the time you can even just spend at home, the time you can spend in comfort, but it can be a big opportunity for you too. Okay. And so, but it's, as we're saying, for all of these, there's something to be removed. There's something that arrives and it makes you remove something so that it can balance out and you can be ready for that Jupiter cup to be filled. Okay. And then let's go ahead and read this here. The career empties reputation, the boss, the title, public standing. Someone above you leaves and their exit changes your position without you acting, or changes your position without you acting. And that's kind of what we were talking about, of course. A career you built stops being what you're known for. The role quietly retires. And so this is the thing. It can be that shift or that pivot within the career too. But ultimately that moves you into a better place. Okay, and it might not feel like it, especially with what's been going on with Scorpio too, is with like the last year or two, there probably has already been this career change, and then like you're finally getting this momentum and moving up. But if it's been the career that's meant for you, then that's cool, and you can see that great advancement. If it's not, then you can see it kind of being a little bit removed. But there's some type of removal around the career, around the reputation even. This can even be some rumors or gossip around work that were lies about you that were spread, and then they finally get seen to be that they were wrong, and then that person gets fired or something like that. It's just weird stuff like that. But there's this push and pull, this give and take within your career house right there. And this is gonna, I mean, what this is gonna lead into is an unexpected partnership, an unexpected contract specifically. So if this is something that causes you to lose your job or have to quit or whatever it is, especially with that retrograde Saturn too, you got to remember Venus at the same time is going to have just moved into Libra. Okay. And it's in your 12th house for that. And so for a placement like that, what you're really looking at is that out of nowhere, that this person reaches out to you and they're like, oh, we're hiring over here or something, just something weird like that where you don't even know. And it can be tied with like people, you know, it's that attractive force. You already have the attractive force you're working with. And it's the Martian force. So to have Venus on your side like that, and, you know, and you can even say the Plutonic force or, but anyway, yeah, you've got that attractive force. So it's like the right thing will come in, the right arrangement, right agreement, right negotiation. All of that can really do it. So It's I know I've been kind of I've been stringing you along, Scorpio, and I'm like, it'll get a little easier soon. It'll get a little easier soon. But like, no, really, like once you get through this eclipse season, things will start to move into Scorpio. You know, you get those retrogrades, but I think you'll handle the retrogrades a lot better than most people. So honestly, I think you'll, because we'll have Virgo season, then Libra season, and then we'll move into that Scorpio season. But we get the retrogrades. But remember, those retrogrades end in Libra. So I think Scorpios will actually do really well during the retrograde of Mercury and Venus. So, you know, we still just got a couple readjustments that are coming in for you. And then you're like really, really blowing up too. And that's like early. I know it sucks to hear, but it's kind of more of an early 2027 type of thing. Yeah. But just get ready for a reshuffling of the deck. And actually, I think you'll have something great that comes in with that Pisces lunar eclipse. Okay, the Pisces lunar eclipse will be a lot better for you, I think, than the solar eclipse will be. All right. And then Sagittarius, this is a cadent one. So this is going to be dealing with what was the cadent? Was the internal process, I believe. It's like, so yeah, but dealing with like more of the internal process and everything. Now Sagittarius, we've been talking about Sagittarius, and I've always been going a little extra for Sagittarius because it's just been, maybe it's because I'm a ninth houser, so I've got a little bit of Sagittarian in me, but also I've just been really fascinated looking at the Sagittarius charts, man, because the big thing is this is happening in the ninth house. So the big thing that I've already seen with Sagittarius, and I've mentioned this before, is like a new thing around belief that comes in, like a whole revolutionary thing around belief. It's dealing with this nostalgia of the past, of the power you held when you were younger in certain ways, and then it's integrating that into belief, into your nervous system, and into all of that stuff, and how you go about things based on that. But there's been this integration going on, and now there's like this new belief about the world, and then on top of all of that, this new belief around the world based off of the integration of your mental and emotional bodies and stuff. Through that, you're going back to older modes of spirituality that used to work for you. So I've seen Sagittarians get back into religion if they were raised like, say, Catholic or Christian or whatever, you know, like kind of going back into that. But this can just be general spirituality as well. I've seen Sagittarians that are just going back into old spiritual practices, or going back to meditation, or whatever that spiritual practice is, the angels, you know, whatever that thing is that worked for you in the past, that you felt like you were in your power. It's kind of going back to that, revisiting that for a while, and allowing that to bring you back to center. So there's that going on right there. But then also, you just had this stuff that was going on in the 10th house. That was the south node in your 10th house. So there has been this thing. It's not that career hasn't gone well or anything, but I would say like career's probably been more steady, and you've had to push harder to get things to happen in career. Okay, but now that that's out of there, it'll be a lot easier to get the ball rolling on career-oriented things, especially with Capricorn being your second house too. It's almost like there's just like that's been the one thing holding it back, but now these things can actually fall into your second house, in your 10th house, well, especially going into next year when Jupiter's going to be in your 10th house. So there's that on top of it. That's really what I love about with what's going on with Sagittarius. But so that whole thing around belief has been to get you ready for a huge career year, where you're going to have the best career placement, essentially. It's like you and, like Virgos maybe? I mean, like, are going to have really those good career placements going on next year. But anyway, you've got that going on too. And yeah, there's been some kind of like severing around a relationship, like a longer term relationship, because this is 7th house and Gemini. Okay, there's a longer term relationship, friendship, roommate, whatever it is going to be, because I mean that's also roommate energy right there, is when you get 7th house with Gemini, totally roommate energy. So that there can be this severance that happened with a roommate, and you're finally feeling like you're in the clear at this time. You're finally feeling like you've I shouldn't say moved on, but I should just say there's like a lighter energy, like starting to finally feel comfortable again, because that's that Mars in Cancer. Starting to feel comfortable again, starting to feel like you have taken some of your power back. It can be stuff around that. So there's that going on. This could also just be a breakup too. I mean, it could be a breakup, but it looks more like, I mean, it's definitely more roommate energy with that seventh house and Gemini, but it can be. It just depends on the nature of the relationship, especially since you're a Sag, and then like that seventh house, like you kind of do get into a little bit of that energy. Those are the relationships that'll kind of work for you, where there is more of that friendly vibe. So it could be that too. But then, remember that you got this fifth house, Saturn, that's going on right now. So there is this doubling back of the structures that have been built this year, and then how you can really dig into and channel your creativity, especially going into next year as you restructure your belief systems, as you tap back into your faith and the way you go about faith and all that stuff. Even there's even a traveling thing that's going on here. There's even an education thing going on too that you can bring into it. But specifically the faith thing is what really comes up with me, just because of the Leo association with the ninth house specifically. Because I think as a Sagittarius, a lot of the education and like a lot of that other stuff that isn't faith-based, I think will come in through Sagittarius season more so than Leo season. Because there's this interesting mix of energies where it's the perfect time for a Sag who can believe in many different things at once to focus on the one thing and integrating their belief system. That's more of when you get into Leo season, which is your ninth house. But no, with that Saturn going retrograde, this is the kind of time to integrate, I guess you could say, a new authenticity within yourself, reflecting on the past, reflecting on the things that happened this year in the past, and being like, okay, these are the new structures I'm going to build, the new boundaries I'm going to set even, so that I can always be my authentic self. I didn't realize where I may have compromised myself here, and here, or something like that, until I've been able to get some distance from this. So, and then, you had that Pluto, the Pluto moon conjunction that happened. That was in your third house too. So this is really just kind of speaking more to the friend groups too. There might have been some stuff around friends. I mean, it's always a releasing thing. So maybe releasing, I don't want to say like friendships per se. Yeah, you can have friends leaving the fold and stuff like that. But I think it's just kind of a new vibe to your friendships that you'll really be able to fully pick up on once you get this eclipse that happens, because obviously it's on the other end of the axis. I think that's all that's coming through for me now. But let me go ahead and read this here. A belief system or teacher stops being credible, and you can't argue yourself back into it. A degree or long study ends. Completed or abandoned, both count. Yeah, I like that. That makes sense. And that is something I could totally bring up. A teacher specifically, yeah. Like there's the belief system stuff, all that still holds, but the teachers, like that just is no longer credible to you anymore. I totally vibe with that. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, a degree or long study ends, completed or abandoned, and so yeah, that's definitely the thing that can come into like, or maybe even a new scholar that you got into and like you feel like you finally have a good handle on their work. That could be something like that too. It all depends on like kind of your vibe around thing. But the thing with the Sagittarius is even if they don't realize it, they kind of are always learning. So there's this new handle, I would say, that you get on a certain level of knowledge, or maybe it doesn't serve you anymore and you let it go. It can be either or. And a planned relocation either falls through or happens, and the fantasy version dies. And that gets into what I was talking about with the Saturn and Neptune retrograde too. It's like the fantasy falls away and like the move is done, or the trip is done. And this is what I thought this trip would look like. It could be, that you recently went on vacation. This is what I thought the trip would look like, but it actually looked like this. And I'm okay with that because I got to do this, and that, and this is what I want to plan for the next time. But this can also just be a bigger move that you did too. All of that too. And like this is what I thought it would look like. This is what it looks like. Okay, now like I can have this realistic thing about it and we can build from here, especially, of course, as I was saying, going into next year with Jupiter in your 10th house, which is going to be just insane for career, especially if you got a service-oriented career, because it is Virgo there. It's going to rule service. It's going to rule health. So if you're helping people for your career, if you're connecting with people on that level where it helps them a lot, where you're giving them a service, that's amazing for you, what you're going to have next year. But that's Sagittarius. All right. And then we've got succeedent Capricorn here. This is going on in the 8th house, okay? So Capricorn Sun, Capricorn Rising going on in the 8th house. We've been talking a little bit about Capricorn here. It's been this interesting give and take of you building this momentum up that's been going on. Momentum building up, and then like maybe needing to borrow money from people, needing to lean on someone to help you build these things you've been building this whole year. But now this huge turnaround that you had. And so with a full moon that represents releasing, but then a new moon eclipse, which also is about like something leaving, and then there is that thing that enters, or that seed that's planted. It's like you pay off the last of what you owe someone that helped you out during this time where you've been building all these things behind the scenes. So there's that going on. There also could be like, we have talked about inheritance that could have come in, unexpected money that could have come in these last moon cycles here. It's so interesting. This is the first time looking at Capricorn. It's so interesting how related this new moon was, or this full moon was, and then this new moon coming up, how so related they are. And you could say that for all of them, but Capricorn more than any of these. It's pretty crazy. And what I would say, though, is you may either have an inheritance come in now, but I said that with the last reading, with the full moon reading, or you had an inheritance back then during the full moon and you're ready to invest it, you're ready to put it into something, okay? Or it's finalized, you knew it was coming in during the full moon, but now it gets finalized during this. But there is something about what you owe people either getting paid off, or an investment you made coming back around, or someone else's money entering the fold. There's something with someone else's money, a clearing that comes out that allows you to fill up your Jupiter chalice, your Jupiter cup here with things that you're going to really want in them. And this is dealing with the 8th house. It's specifically going to deal with other people. What can I build with another person? Okay. And of course, Mars, during all this time coming into the 7th house, is really speaking to that. It's really about, and it's in the home too. So this is really dealing with a significant other. This can be people gifting you things too. If you have that coming up, even just during this eclipse season in general, people gifting you things, and then that's able to go into the home, there's new ways, because look at in the 4th house there, which rules the home, you've got that Saturn and that Neptune right there. And then this is people like gifting things for you. So there's even that. I'm looking at gifts. I'm looking at other people having to deal with material things, investments they make in you, investments they have made in you, ways that you can pay that back, where you can equalize that karma out. And then it can create something really stable, a relationship that you have at home, a relationship that feels like home. And this is like a contract type of thing, or like a long-term marriage relationship, those kind of things. But finally feeling like you can pay that back, you can pay that off. And then, of course, at this time, you've got Venus that moves in finally to your 10th house too. So there is this little preview of a career trajectory that comes in as well. That is definitely going to take longer, but you are a Capricorn, okay? So the things typically will take longer, but once you build them, they're sturdy and they last for years to come. So it's almost like it's asking for nothing for it to take another 2 years for you to reach the apex of what you've been building right now, but know that it will still take some more time, but you're at this turning point. It's so interesting. I call this the eclipse. The eclipse is like of this turning point. And we looked at the science of that, but really looking at it as a turning point here, to where if you felt like you were really needing to lean on some people for a while now, it's like you can finally stop leaning on them so heavily, and then it won't feel so much like leaning on them and more building with them, whether it's a collaborative thing through work, or it's through your actual like a actual marriage relationship type of thing. So that's the big thing right here. But I didn't even read any of this. Entanglement empties, shared money, debt, the hidden and intimate. A debt closes, paid, written off, or discharged. The mechanism varies, the ending doesn't. That's about exactly what I said there. A financial entanglement ends, a settlement, a dissolution, and estate closing. And that's really the thing too. It can deal with so many things. If you were even like selling a house and then moving in with a person, that's kind of a thing with even the last few Capricorn readings. I could say might have been something I missed, but that could be very much the energy of like the final paperwork is done on this home that you sold, and like moved in, and like that was really what the eighth house was about, was the integration of your guys' financials and properties and belongings and stuff like that. It might actually feel like it's really done and you're like through with it. So there's that too. But yeah, financial entanglement ends, a settlement, dissolution, or an estate closing. And then 3, a death, literal or structural, moves something toward you or away. The second house fills back to your own money, your own hands. A dependency ends either direction. Okay. And so really good with Capricorn there. It's just like you finally kind of are at this pivot point where you feel like you've got your momentum back. And we talked about that. I was saying really starting with the last moon, the full moon, feeling like you get this momentum back. And now there's this last thing that comes through, which is maybe the thing that's your blind spot that will get forcibly changed, altered, removed, so that it can fall into place properly and then be filled up, so that seed is properly planted, that eclipse energy, the new moon energy specifically. The eclipse is the thing that was your blind spot that kind of gets pulled out with that south node, of course. All right, and then we got our last angular with Aquarius, one of the harder ones. This is the opposition that we have with Aquarius, okay? This is in the 7th, by the way, in the 7th house. And so we've been talking about all this stuff with Aquarius, 1st house, 7th house, all the oppositions and stuff going on. I'm not going to say so much that this is similar to the last moon that we had, just on the opposite axis, but really with the last one we were talking about being in the 1st house, it was like finally, and we had this play back and forth that was really interesting. And it's been about Aquarius falling back in love with their relationship and then falling back in love with themselves through like work, and having this work kind of expansion that's happening too. New deals that come through, new better work negotiations, better career negotiations, all of these things. It's been a confluence of all of these things for Aquarius here that have really tapped them into, because you have to remember right now, Uranus just moved into their 5th house, okay? So that's like, it's already playing into this Leo energy we're seeing with the Leo stellium. Well, there's that 5th house energy right now going on for Aquarius with their, in modern astrology, their ruling planet. Of course, like it's not a personal planet. I'm typically going to look more towards Saturn, but there is still something to be said there too. You got Saturn and Neptune retrograde right there. This is about starting a new thing. You could even view 3rd house sometimes as co-workers. I mean, if you got Saturn in there, it's kind of dealing more with co-workers because that's the career planet. So you also have that kind of stuff going on too. They're both retrograde, so it's like, okay, what career moves did I make this year? How did I think it was going to look? How does it look now? What are these pivots I'm able to make? Okay. And then any renegotiations to the contracts, they're going to be in a really good place with that Venus in Libra, especially if you made them when Venus was in Virgo and you got the details right too. It's just a harder placement under which to make those agreements and all that. But once it's in Libra, there is a gracefulness to it. You can get a better deal on stuff. You can get paid more. So if you're negotiating a new job around this time, that's perfect. That's great. And then also, though, what you really are looking at here is the 7th house. So there's this dynamic about how you view yourself, the value you put within yourself, how you can bring that forward to your long-term relationship, how you can bring that forward into the workplace, because you got to split these up too, especially with how Aquarians are. This is how I get into the air signs, how I was talking about Libra, Gemini and stuff, and this kind of freelance vibe that goes on with them, or like the way that they approach work in general. It is more of a 7th house way to approach work. I find myself utilizing the 7th house a lot more in an Aquarius, Gemini, or Libra reading than I would in any of the other readings. But so there is this heavy career thing here that's also going on, but there's also this thing about your long-term commitments. How is this all going to settle into place? And then how have I fallen back in love? Or, did I not fall back in love and I'm leaving this relationship? But what I've seen with most Aquarians is falling back in love with the image they have of themselves through the work moves they've been making, and then also how they view their partner. And I'd say even specifically, like maybe not viewing your partner as an adversary. It's kind of a give and take. I get it. I have an Aquarian moon. I get it. But you can kind of get that. I don't think Aquarians would necessarily admit to that, but sometimes they can see their partner as a little bit of an adversary. It's kind of like that meme where they say, like the meme where she's like, why can't you just be normal, looking in the back seat, and then like the kid's just like screaming with the crazy eyes, like that. The kid screaming with the crazy eyes is Aquarius. Like, you know what I mean? So like but like that's kind of the tension they can get into with their long-term partner. And so that's where I'm saying they can view their partner as their adversary because they don't get the fact that Aquarians are just weird, you know? So, um, but, but yeah, like specifically that it's like this last finishing touch of what is going to be delivered to you, Aquarius. Okay, what's going to be delivered that is going to pretty much force you because you got the opposition. It's going to force you to take something out of your life, an agreement, an arrangement that you have that'll allow you to more specifically, whichever of these is your priorities, focus on your marriage, your long-term, like intimate relationship, your career, any of these things. But there is something else that's going to be taken out of that, okay? And then this even can deal with stuff with children too, because it's obviously going on in Leo. But you look a little bit less at the sign. The sign gives you the flavor, of course, but there is something to be said just because you're in the oppositional energy. So this can be dealing with children. Maybe you got to like find new babysitters so you can make these career moves you want to do. There is something right there, okay? Or you have to just renegotiate time where the kids are being watched, something like that, okay? But you got that going on too. And then, of course, sixth house, Mars. And this really speaks to these career changes because sixth is your daily work. That's your daily work environment, okay? Your daily routine. Specifically, it's like the workhorse kind of house there. And with that being in Cancer, it's like through this negotiation that you're doing that sets up to where you can actually be more comfortable in your workspace on a day-to-day level. Whereas you weren't comfortable before. And this kind of gets into these huge renegotiations within the career in the workspace and all this stuff. So you can see this finally all click together, slot into place, you know, and then like reach ahead and get going. And especially to have that happen so early in the retrograde too, I think is beautiful for Aquarius. So the other empties, partners, contracts, representation, open enemies. Now you guys know with me, I don't use open enemies as the seventh house. This could maybe be an example where you use it, I guess, because of just the things that are going on with work with Aquarius. But even then, I would say this stuff came up when we had everything in Cancer in the sixth house. It's not new with the enemies you're dealing with in work. So I'm more of a sixth house open enemies person, but that's still there because we've just had all of this sixth house stuff personally. A relationship or contract ends, the other side announces it, you receive the news. And yeah, so this, I mean, could be something a little backstabby at work, but you probably have multiple avenues going right now. And so that's the thing. A partner, agent, or long-standing collaborator exits. Okay. And this is similar to what's going on with Scorpio too. And you have to think they're both angular. Similar to what's going on in Scorpio because this could be that someone you are looking at different career things because of this, and that, and then someone leaves or gets fired, and they're like, we actually need you to take the position. Can you do it? And there's this evaluating you have to do around it, and this gets into like what I was talking about with maybe I need to make sure someone can watch the kids and this and that and all that, but it ends up being good, okay? So that's kind of, it's this last little tension aspect though, to where it all can fall into place. And then ultimately, I just think this is really good if you're in a relationship though. It's like I've been talking about falling back in love. You know, if you're in Aquarius with your long-term relationship, maybe it didn't feel like you had the chemistry as much anymore, but you can fall back into that chemistry really easily now. 3, an opponent withdraws. The fight you braced for never happens. And it just really just speaks to the workplace for me specifically. It speaks to the workplace, like someone you've been butting heads with. And this is why you'll have to tell me what you think, Aquarians, in comments here, but like, are you seeing the enemies come in now, or has it been for the last month? Because if it's been for the last month, that's that 6th house being open enemies more than the 7th house, because it's the opposite of the 12th house, which is hidden enemies. Like my teacher taught me that, and it changed everything for me because the timing's just not right when you start to look at 7th house. So personally, but yes, an open opponent withdraws. The fight you brace for never happens. Specifically, I feel like in the workplace. But ultimately, all this coming together and lining up for you that by the end of this eclipse season, Aquarius, it's like everything you've worked for the whole year will finally just arrive. This is why we say the eclipses make things arrive, okay? And it'll be perfect for you, Aquarius. Okay, I know I looked on the chat here. I'm just scrolling up because I feel like I saw someone. I'd be appalled by your diet. I'm just catching up really quick because Okay, because I saw the chat go and I was like, hey, let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, and we're on the last sign here. Pisces. All right, and then Pisces is another cadent one that we have, okay? And then with the eclipse, this is going on in the sixth house. We've been talking about this with Pisces, okay? So, of course, this is dealing with like your daily work, daily routine, your health, service to others, all of these things. Yeah, obligation, I guess, is another way you could put that too. And this is about what is about to be cleared out through that, okay? And, oh, excuse me. And it's interesting too with this. I forget which one that was similar to. I think it might have been Libra, but it was really about, okay, what am I going to like in terms of, I think Libra was kind of more dealing with career a little bit, but there was some of this stuff going on. But it's really this evaluation around, there's been an evaluation around what you want your daily work routine to look like. And this has been for the past couple lunations that we're looking at. Okay, like the last two pretty much. Of like, how do I need my new routine to look? How do I need my health to look? What are the things that are going on in my home? How do I feel like I can be more authentic in my home? I can channel myself. I can be my dreamy Piscean self, all of these things. Well, these are all really coming to a head, and the eclipse is going to allow that to arrive, okay? And then it's going to empty, as I keep saying here with this analogy, empty your Jupiter cup so it can be filled with something better here. But there is this change specifically dealing with health, with your daily work environment, everything like that. In terms of your career, we've been talking about making changes to the way your job works on the daily basis for the ultimate advancement of your career. And so number one here says a job ends, not the career, the job, with its specific daily people. So this could be changing of, I've been talking about if you do healing work, client work, stuff like that for Pisces, that's where you can all of a sudden have a switch up to your clients. You could switch to a different place that you work out of. It really just depends. Like if you're moving into a new home, if you work out of an office and then like you go to a new office, however that looks for you, changing the daily work environment though, which changes the specific daily people that you interact with. Okay. So there's that going on right there. But yeah, really with this, of course, Mercury's coming in there, and then Mercury is dealing with that commerce aspect that I said, but it's also communication. It is those daily people you're going to see. Even in some cases, it's like roommates too, so if that applies to you, take it. If it doesn't resonate, just leave it there. But what I would say is it's with Jupiter there, it's about having a much more adventurous work day, almost like as a Pisces, and Jupiter's your ruling planet in medieval astrology. Jupiter's your ruling planet, and so like have you let your days become too mundane, Pisces, and like you want to bring that adventure back into it. You want to like start having fun again, like, oh, I need a change up. Well, whatever this thing that comes in, if it's an unexpected thing, if it's out of your control, take that thing. Okay, you just had that full moon that was in your 12th house, okay, that full moon in Aquarius in your 12th house there. And, especially with the node just coming in right now, this is speaking about leaning in on the dreamy aspect of yourself, on the Piscean aspect of yourself. That is this bridge between worlds, because through being that bridge between worlds, you're a bridge between people, and we need people who can serve as the bridge between people in this next phase that we're in here, with Pluto and Aquarius here, with power to the people, with people awakening on such an accelerated rate. This is what we really need. People like you. And so you have to ask yourself, like, are you around people on your daily work life, in your day-to-day, just even your daily routine, that are helping you serve this function? Okay. And then all the home stuff that should have been recently addressed, but there can still be stuff going on there. How have you altered the things in the home situation to reflect that as well? Because like the home for you needs to be your dream realm. That needs to be where you can tap into the Piscean energy, and then you can bridge that energy to people all day long, but it has to be the right people. And so this is really about shifting the last of it, which the home stuff just got done, and now you're shifting that the work stuff, the daily stuff and all that. And like it's easier now that you've identified the home stuff and fixed it, now you can identify all the other stuff you're interacting with on a daily basis in order to connect people together, in order to connect better with people and just have more of a flow. It's about kind of getting more into this flow and less rigidity that you maybe let develop since the beginning of the year, because Saturn and Neptune joined, Neptune, your other ruling planet in modern astrology right there. And there was probably this new rigidity that you fell into, this new structure. And then maybe you structured yourself, you boxed yourself in a little too much. And this retrograde with Neptune that's going on is really about reevaluating that. And this is that last piece for you. And then, of course, you get that Pisces eclipse on the 28th in your first house. So you got to do this last little bit of stuff. That next eclipse comes in, that's going to be in your first house. It's going to add things to, even though the node's in the next sign over, but there's that eclipse there. It's like, okay, this is the way that I was when all these Pisces eclipses started last year, and it started fucking up all the things that are going on in my life. And I bent with it, I moved with it, I flowed through it gracefully and stuff. But then I just needed to evaluate this and this and that. And this is what I want to take with me going into all this new energy. The things about me I don't want to forget that are the best parts of me. And yeah, so let me read this. A job ends, not the career, the job with its specific daily people. I think I read that. A health routine changes state, or something manageable stops being manageable. Okay. And this can be, it can be a health thing. It can be something manageable in terms of work, especially if you have some level of management in work too. It can be that. But then also, but this can still, you still got, this echo of the home stuff going on, because yes, Mars is in the 5th house, but it's in the 5th house of Cancer at this time. Okay, so this is really going to deal with still the home things, and this is what I kind of gave the preview of last with the full moon readings that we gave, because with that, it's really speaking to, like, is there authenticity going on in the home? Is everything above board in the home, whether it's with myself or with someone that I live with, like, is there, and especially because we were dealing with that full moon in the 12th house, that's going to deal with like drinking, with disassociative stuff, like with any of that. And then it's in Aquarius, so it's like, is there someone that I'm living, because Aquarian vibes also kind of give me a roommate vibe for some reason. It's just like weird. It depends on how it's placed, but in this case, it can kind of give me a roommate vibe too. It's like, does my roommate have a problem? I just think of something like that too, especially as Pisces, because you can, if someone has like a drug or an alcohol problem or something like that, like you can pick up on that because you're Pisces. It's like, that's like what your sign rules, so you like kind of typically Pisces know how to handle that stuff more responsibly, and they just have a higher threshold for it. But anyway, that's a thing that can come up, like someone you're living with, like you realize they're lying to you about those things. This is very Mars in the 5th, of Cancer for you. Okay, so there is still this last echo of the home stuff that's going to come up, and just making sure that that's in line with everything, that you're really trying to accomplish in terms of what you see on the day today, what's part of the daily routine, especially if this stuff is dealing with the daily routine, like you're picking up after a person because of these aforementioned things that I said, or even like vice versa too. But there is still there's the echo of home. There's this need to change the daily routine. Okay, so something new can come in, so your Jupiterian chalice can be filled, especially as a Pisces, being a water sign. And then through that, you're going to reach this new level of yourself that's almost like had been wanting to come through, but you've been resisting it a little bit. And that will be, of course, the next eclipse, which is going to be the 28th of August here. A standing obligation ends. Caretaking a pet, a commitment you built weeks around. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at there. I hadn't even read that part yet, but that's what I was getting at, is like, is there a person you live with that's like, it's almost more to take care of them. It's like an emotional commitment, or they like do delusional stuff, I guess, or it's like I said with the drugs and alcohol is specifically the thing I think of it, but it's stuff to escape this reality that they're not doing in a healthy way. And you have to watch that because you're a Pisces and you do know how to do that in a healthy way. And through that, it's like, do I want this anymore? Is this working for me anymore? Like, how is this, am I tired of this? It's that kind of thing, that kind of vibe going on. And then it's just kind of like tough, because this is where that next Pisces eclipse comes in. That's so important. The Pisces lunar eclipse, and especially being a moon sign, like a lunar eclipse. Not that you got your ruled by the moon, but I'm saying being a moon eclipse, a lunar eclipse. It's going to deal much more with the emotions than this one. This is where you first kind of see it. It's more of a fire. Like maybe you're fed up with it, and then by the moon, like you kind of know, and you're like, okay, I'm done with that. And somewhere in between is where you do all this action. But I mean, it just kind of reads to me as like a breakup almost, or like, or a complete reevaluation of boundaries in the relationship. Because it's like all, as you get the south node moving out of your seventh house, you get all of these new planets moving into the seventh house. They're bringing light to what the south node doing, the thing, the stuff you're supposed to leave behind for the last year and a half, which is dealing with more relationships, business partnerships, that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, that light's going to come in, and it's going to like be shown upon by the sun, and you're going to see like, where did I lean onto that for comfort? Because remember, the south node's also like comfort and all that. So, but anyway, I think that's pretty much all of it. I guess I could just bring up that Venus right there in the 8th house too. Almost realizing like in the 7th house, it maybe felt more connected to this long-term commitment or relationship, business or intimate. And then all of a sudden it moves into the 8th house here, and you realize how much you're doing for a person, how gracious you've been with your resources for this person, and like they can't really bring you the same level that you bring them. Something like there's that too. But then there's also that's like more the negative aspect of it, but I'd say the positive aspect for it is more, how would I say that? I'm trying to just give an alternative here too. A positive for that would be like, I don't know, like maybe you want to make a donation to something. Maybe there's something that really helped you in the last year or two as you were going through something that you really believe in, and you want to make a donation to it. It's also good energy for that too. And then the 12th feels quieter and less visible than you'd like. It buys solitude, requested or not. And so that's the thing too, is try to take some time alone too. Especially if you haven't had a lot of time alone. If it's like you go straight to work, you're always around people, you go straight home, you're always around people. Pisces need time alone to go into that dream space, to go into that Piscean space. It's so key and important. Like make sure you reconnect with yourself. You have that personal time, that alone time of quiet. So important for a Pisces, okay? So if you haven't had that, just sit and think about it. Like, when's the last time you had alone time? The same level of alone time that you used to get last year at this time, that you used to get a year and a half ago at this time. When's the last time you had that level of alone time? If it hasn't been recently, try to make that time. See what comes through. Maybe smoke a bowl, I only smoke during the eclipses, so I'm totally going to promote smoking a bowl around the eclipse. But all right, and that was it. I totally went on. Oh my gosh, okay, it looks like I did it just in 3 hours. Well, we're pretty good. I was hoping it was 2 hours and a half, but we'll definitely be shorter with the next one because we went over a lot of the huge stuff here. So let me just move this. But yeah, 12 days here, okay? And I mean 12 days from today, essentially, because I don't know. Is that today? Maybe that was yesterday. I don't know. Because I was supposed to do this yesterday. But anyway, sun goes out over Iceland, northern Spain on the 12th of August at 10:36 Pacific time, and that's AM. Of course, if you ever want a reading, guys, I can go way more in depth. I'll get on my channeling bullshit like this too, and all of my links here on linktree.com/nightslight. But anyway. And in turn, thank you for everyone who was hanging out in chat today too. Very lively and fun. And I really wanted to say, hopefully this is close enough. We're gonna go deeper into this eclipse. I'm gonna clip this stuff up for like each zodiac sign and all that stuff, and also just put stuff on the mechanics of this eclipse, because it is, as I said, that turning point eclipse. It's such a turning point for all of us. And it's this turning point that is dealing with these last like 2 lunations we've been through, all of these things. But then it's like a refresher. Once we're through this eclipse season, all that stuff makes sense, and it's kind of we're in new territory. But it's interesting because of the retrogrades we start to go into. We get these new retrogrades, so it's almost like new things and situations have been coming through right now, which is making us go into a new version of ourselves. But once we're in the new version of ourselves, we reflect back on all of these situations that came up and how we handled them. And then we meet this middle ground, this like median point type of thing going on. And that kind of goes in, that's like December into January, going into all that time. And then we're ready for the next year, of course, you know, and we'll have that Mars retrograde as well, which will go into that like later time period. But we're going to go, I'm going to take a look at just the chart next week sometime, maybe a little earlier in the week. We'll see. And I really want to go deeper on that chart, but it's just like a whole hour or two to go deep AF on that chart, you know, because the degrees it's at, the aspects everything is making. I wanted to make sure I got through the zodiac signs today. Just get those out early, get people ready and prepared for the eclipses before they really start searching on these things. And then we can really dig into the chart. Yeah, like I said, at some point next week, we'll do that. But thank you for coming by. Thanks for watching Night's Light Astrology. And also leave in the comments if you are interested. I'm kind of thinking of doing a weekly overview, maybe on Sunday or Saturday or Wednesday, I don't know, but just like a day by day per week. I feel like I can do that pretty well. Just I could make it easily. I could put all the aspects. So of course you can put it in the chat too. I'll look at it here once I end. But also in the comments if you're watching the replay. Let me know if you'd like that. But like I said, thank you for watching Night's Light Astrology. You guys have an amazing night.